I'm Bertosaurus, and my team name I think is We're Going Eighth. My partner is his username is HJW61101. Our strongest opponent is probably the most obvious answer is Nubal and DQA. Those guys are Omega Sweats.
Hey, what's up? My name's Kermax. I chose Solus as my partner for the 2v2 tourney. I chose Solus because I feel like he could low-key pop off. If I had to invest in one player in the tournament, it would be President.
Hey, this is Spencer. The partner that I chose for the giantslayer duo tourney is Aegon. Our team name is Aegon.gg. If I had to invest in one of my opponents, I would probably invest in either Kyun or Milk. I would consider those two to be the greatest players in NA, both in tourney and in ladder.
Hello, I'm Kyun and I'll be playing in the 2v2 tourney with Emily Wang under the team name 31st out of 32 Cuties. I have my eyes on Soju Presteven team and Milk Becca team because I feel like all three teams are pretty close in terms of skill level.
My name is Setsuko. My team name is Bronzosaurus. I chose Saralyn as my partner. I would actually invest in two teams to lose, which are Bertosaurus' team and Spencer TFT's team. The reason being that they are just known terrible players.
I'm Ramkev, and I chose Jack as my partner because he's the homie and we're gonna pop off. And if I could invest in one of my opponents, it may be GV8 and Appies. I think they're gonna be an underrated team going into it.
Hello, I'm Goobums, and my team name's also Goobums because I'm not super creative. I chose Renzo as my partner. With him, it's gonna be super free. And then there's also Nubal, my teammate on IG, who took my other teammate, DQA, and they've made a team. So hopefully I can go ahead and beat them.
I'm Soju. I picked Pressman as my partner. He's not that good at TFT, but he's been my friend for a while. So yeah, I don't know if there is the strongest opponent. There's definitely weaker opponents though, but I won't talk about that.
Welcome to week number 1 of Giant Slayer Series 3. It's day number 2 that we're going to be here for today. My name is Admirable. I'm here with Bryce Blum, aka Esportslaw. And Bryce, we have had some pretty crazy games yesterday, and I think we're going to be seeing some more crazy games here today. How are you doing today, and how are you figuring the games today are going to be?
Yeah, yesterday was wild. Some really, really fun lobbies. Super excited about today. I love the 2v2 format. It maximizes trash talking. It throws a whole bunch of other fun variables into play. You can grief more efficiently. You can team play in really, really interesting ways. We actually saw yesterday Ramblin' Robin go on to win a lobby, but he took his Riven 3 out in order to improve Robin's chances of finishing the top 4 and actually improve Robin by a placement. So that's the kind of stuff that we're just starting to scratch the surface of, and I'm so excited to kind of get deeper into this format and see the team play really come out and shine.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the format that we have, because this isn't like what we've normally had where everyone's playing as a single spot. It is a team format that's going to be taking place. There are 32 players overall, which is 16 teams. And then per day, the 16 players, 8 teams, they're going to be compared into 2 lobbies, which are going to be playing 4 games a day, a lobby A and a lobby B. We'll be rotating through those 2. If your team wins a lobby, that's an additional $50 you're going to get for each lobby that you can win. So up to $200 just based on whether or not you can win your lobby. Afterwards, the top 4 teams after 3 weeks of play, this is cumulative efforts that are taking place, they're going to advance to the finals, which is going to be 4 teams that make it there. They're going to be playing 6 games in those finals, and then afterwards, those teams will combine, and that will be determining who is the winner of that. So again, 16 teams is what we had, so we can go ahead and take a look at those and see how the teams are actually divided, and we'll notice that this isn't like a huge tournament thing that's been going on. There is, a pretty strong prize pool here, but really what this is about, I feel like, is mostly establishing yourself as just a very strong team and picking the right teammate that you have. A couple of these really stand out to me. Really, a lot of these stand out to me, Bryce, but something's got to be specifically standing out to you.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, going into the tournament, there were 2 teams that were kind of identified as the sweaty teams, right? That's Rat Owl and DQA and Nubal and Ramblin' Robin and Ramblin'. They played yesterday, though. Today is the wild card day. We get a bunch of players that we're a little bit less familiar with, not as much tournament experience. I am always excited to watch Ramkev play. I'm Jack, his partner, been struggling a little bit on ladder lately, but I think coming in playing a little narrow, going to contest the A-Bomb and Vel'Koz tree, so that they're definitely one team I have my eye on. How about you? Who are you looking at, Nathan?
Goobums. It doesn't matter what team Goobums is on, is who's on the team with Goobums. In this case, it's going to be the Ranger. Goobums is always going to be the player that I pick no matter what happens. He could even say, hey, I'm going to lose. I haven't been playing at all. I haven't been practicing. That's not what he said. But if he did, I would still pick Goobums for this one, because that's just the kind of person I am. Goobums is the greatest. We can go ahead and take a look at the schedule that's here for week 1 as well. You notice yesterday you get to see the teams that played, and today you're going to be seeing the ones that are there. Taking a look at what was effective on the previous team, where it showed you what the players were. This is something that you can check out, but right now this is what we're looking for here on day number 2.
Yeah, so yeah. A lot of fun teams as we take a look at how the lobbies are breaking out. Nathan, talk to me about Lobby A.
Well, Lobby A, kind of what I'm looking at here is that there are some players that, a lot of teams that I watch just, based on what comes up on Twitch and their streams. Emily is a player that I often watch just because she's streaming a lot of times at the time that I'm kind of sitting at my computer trying to play and read some stuff. Emily is a player I very often watch. I've watched a lot of Aegon, though, but that was mostly during like set 4.5 that I was watching Aegon. But really, you kind of look across this whole board, and it's just there are players that really stand out as like some of the strongest players that are available, and other ones that stand out and I go, I've seen this player before, but I haven't really seen them play in a tournament scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to get into Lobby A. We have 3 players in this lobby that have been leaning Hellions on the ladder, so it'll be interesting to see the rat contestation. I think pound for pound, Hellions probably the strongest composition in the game, but if it is contested, a little bit harder. If it's contested 3 ways, a lot harder, so it'll be very fun. Lobby B, also some big names, spearheaded by Soju. Will this be the tournament where Soju reigns supreme, Nathan?
We're going to find out. I was watching him today as well, and he seemed to have some pretty drastic opinions about what forms you should be going for. I believe the last thing I heard him quote on was, you take Bo, you force Trist, or you force Yasuo. If you don't have one of those, you build yourself a Sunfire and hope you get top 3. So I'm curious like how much that's just an exaggeration of his, or he's just going to be actually going towards that direction. 1st through 8th is what you're going to be looking at here. 1st is 10 points, 8th is going to be 1 point, and then the combination of the 2 teammates combined will determine whether or not they finish at the 1st place or the 2nd place, 3rd place, 4th place, depending on what their combined point totals are. And so from there, we can go ahead and take a look at the prize pool, what people are going to be competing for at this point. And I want to give a huge thank you to Riot and to Ball Street for partnering with Giant Slayer for this event. We have a $10,000 prize pool that's taking place in the finals. 1st place, $3,000, and 2nd place is going to be $2,000, 3rd, $1,500, and 4th is $1,100. And again, if your team finishes 1st place in a lobby, you get an extra $50 for that. So kind of cool that you have a little bit of incentive to continue trying to win from that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely gives an incentive, but let's be serious. This is an event that is really about bragging rights. A lot of people pick their friends for this event. A lot of people really want to hold one over on all these TFT players. This is the road to regionals. It is about a mental edge that can be gained between now and when we get there in about a month, so it's going to be a fun journey. I'm excited to take it with you.
Yeah, and I loved the video at the start of this as well, where you kind of hear the players, having that little bragging rights. And then yesterday, during the interview, hearing the what do you think is the weakest team? What do you think is the strongest team? I love the answers that players are giving, because they feel like they're prohibited from naming who they think is the weakest, but effectively just everyone they think is under them is the weakest.
Yeah, some of them were, prohibited or not, were coming out and saying it. We had a lot of fun trash talking in those videos alone, and we haven't even started the games yet. So as this event goes along, I'm sure we're going to get more and more of that, hopefully a little bit of it in the lobby. This is an event that I want to see some pinging. I want to see people griefing each other. I want to see people kind of leaning into the format and having fun with it.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching, if you want to be involved in this as well, we have over at fantasytft.com, this is for Ball Street here, you can head over to the website, and there are a lot of cool things that are happening over there. The big one is that they're giving away a lot of the eggs, which will cash in for the little legends that are there. And for here, we're going to be highlighting the 2 big questions that were taking place here. Number 1, who will win Lobby A in game number 1? And question B, who will finish 8th in Lobby A in game number 1? And Bryce, I know that you've been spending a pretty considerable amount of time before this to pick which ones are the answers you think on this.
Yeah, I have. I've been doing a lot of research on the players coming in. I, as always, will be kind of min-maxing my strategy. So for those of you looking to trade at home, here's a few notes. I think Emily Wang is undervalued on both the win and the loss column, actually. A little bit of a first or 8th player, and depending on what path she takes, she's been playing a lot of kind of leaning towards the Abomination Heimerdinger AP tree. And that's a composition that's very capable of bottoming out in 8th and capable of winning a lobby. The other people you got to have your eyes on for winning the lobby, Burt, Spencer, and Kyun, 3 of the more pedigreed players in the field, all of whom have been playing a ton of Hellions on ladder. So if any of them get a Hellion opening, I expect them to basically brute force it through, and I think in any lobby, Hellions is the most likely comp to win, so definitely something you want to keep your eye on as we talk about who is going to be winning Lobby A. How about you? Where's your action?
I'd take Goobums for everything that was on there, and then for in terms of who got 8th, all I did was look at the lol chest, and I picked the lowest rating one that was there. And quite frankly, I'd have to go look and figure out exactly which one I clicked, because all I did was compare it and see what the actual the ladder ranking was at that point. I just used the number, and I matched up that way. But for those of you who want to go over to, again, fantasytft.com and check it out, you can trade and predict who you think is going to be the best in there, and then throughout the course of the game, you can keep making those trades. Your goal is just to get the highest point total, basically, that you can in that spot, and that's how you're going to be winning those prizes that are available over on fantasytft.com. And so that pretty much brings us now to waiting for game number 1, which is just about to get underway pretty soon for this one. We're going to be taking a look at Lobby A as we get through this. And again, I'm pretty excited about this one just because we have so many strong players that are just across this whole event. And I just can't wait to see who ends up doing best in these particular positions. You know, if you had mentioned specifically, you know, prior to us actually having this broadcast, who you thought was going to win. And again, I'm going to pick Goobums, but I picked that in Lobby B. He's not going to be showing up in Lobby A at this point. Who do you think is going to be doing best in Lobby A?
Well, so if we think it's who's going to be doing best, like if I had to rate it based on highest expected placement, I'm taking Setsuko, not contesting a bunch of the reroll compositions, been playing a little bit of everything, outstanding player overall, strong tournament player, and has been leaning into Aphelios, which is going to be an extremely uncontested tree overall. The only player out here that was playing a bunch of Aphelios aside from him was Aegon, who has not been playing a ton lately in general. So that's where my money is as we head into Lobby A.
Yeah, and so here we go. We're going to be watching Spencer TFT's side of this on Team Aegon.gg. I really feel like that Bertosaurus was one of the names that I had my highlight on, and I was really torn between Spencer and between Aegon as where I was going to be putting the rest of this. And for Spencer right now, you'll notice that Spencer just a very clean player in terms of their speed. They always seem to be doing everything very quickly. They get the bow to start with, and this kind of feels like, you know, a way that I've seen Spencer play a lot is that Spencer has a very strong idea of what they're going to be doing when they head into a game like this.
Yeah, Spencer, definitely one of the more pedigreed players in the field. Ooh, immediately gets a double 3-cost drop, 2 of the most powerful 3-costs at that, a Nunu and a Nidalee. Buy Spencer stock, ladies and gentlemen. That is part of the fun of Ball Street app, is that you get to trade live. If you are watching this, then you have seen that this is a pretty high roll opening. I am very interested in Spencer stock right now.
Well, hang on a second. Right now, with the first 3 units that Spencer got, all they have is 2 Brawler and 2 Dawnbringer with 2 of the most powerful 3 costs in each one of those things. I mean, is that really that big of a deal?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how much of an impact can this possibly have on his game? He also gets another bow, so possibility to slam an RFC. Also could just be looking, you know, maybe slamming some potential AD items onto that Nidalee and using Nidalee as a transitional carry. There's also a path that involves re-rolling Nidalee if he gets offered a bunch of Nidalees along the way. Dawnbringer spat, and we could be seeing one of Mortdog's favorite comps, the Dawnbringer reroll, where you're going for Nidalee, Riven, and Nunu, and you go Nunu chomp chomp, and you get a ton of value out of the Dawnbringer spat on that unit. So a ton of fun directions that he can go. He's pre-leveling, so one of the people in the Hellion lottery is officially out of it. I agree with this decision, Nathan. Gets such powerful 3 costs early. It's hard to envision sticking on Hellion from that path.
Let me take a look at Aegon's side, the other teammate for this. And on Aegon's side, what feels like a very similar feeling. I do feel like that, you know, when I first started watching Aegon's stream side, he was very much on the reroll side of things. But it does feel like that Aegon is a little bit more open and flexible in a lot of situations like this. And I think with the chain, tier, and cloak as part of what you have here, this is you know, very much like a slam Frozen Heart thing, and then, you know, leave this cloak open to decide what the rest of that's going to be.
Yeah, I really like that. We've actually seen 2 Frozen Hearts slammed on 2-1. Not something you see in every lobby, but as we see, if you get good value out of it, you get really good value out of it. This Sejuani jumps into Emily's entire team, applies that slow to everything, and all of a sudden this fight, which from a unit's perspective actually could have wound up being very close, is not. Emily's team basically doesn't get to play the game. They're just sitting there attacking so slowly onto that Sejuani. Just absolutely brutal. Aegon steamrolls Emily early.
Yeah, I get to see the damage point there as well. The Nidalee without any source of item damage on it, picking up a bunch of damage there. This is always one of my favorite parts about the game right now too, is this 2-2 armory. I feel like this has been one of just the most exciting points of the game for me, is that you get 4 item components early very, very often, and that you have to make this choice about whether or not you're slamming things or whether or not you're trying to aim for something else.
Yeah, a lot of people slamming a lot of items very early. I don't think we've seen a single board without an item built, which is definitely the, for my money, correct way to play TFT. Wow, Aegon slamming an Ionic Spark even. That is a little surprising to me. Not an item you see slammed every day. Aegon's board is okay. Definitely better with these items slammed, though somewhat of an awkward position for Aegon. Looks like he's thinking about going into Assassins. Okay, so he's just going to play the Dawnbringer. He does have a nice frontline backline combination with the 2 Brawler and the Nidalee and the Assassin backline Kha'Zix, but no 2 stars yet, so definitely needs to find some upgrades in order to justify this and get that win streak going. Going to be tough in Dispenser's boards, those strong 3 costs, that Nidalee wailing away with the Runaan's Hurricane. We have a Nidalee on Nidalee action in the back line, actually. Who will dodge the most, Nathan?
Well, that's really what it boils down to, is who dodges the most, and part of that's items. You're going to dodge more if your opponent has more attack speed, but you're probably going to take more hits if your opponent has more attack speed as well. So Aegon taking a hit here. The Nunu, I think, making a very big impact on that, and now 2 Tristanas showing up at this point as well. My gosh, this is like... I love the early game in this particular patch right now because it just gives you so many different directions that you could take.
Yeah, and I said it going in, a lot of people very interested in Tristana. Aegon pinging his board. He scouts around and sees 3 different people with Tristana on their board. At least one of those, I think, is already hard committed to the Hellion path. Aegon just beautifully holding on to these Tristanas. I wish he could hold on to them indefinitely, Nathan, because it would be very fun to see. Probably gets to hold on to him for a round, then winds up making gold. Meanwhile, you're looking at Sarah's board, who has that early BT slammed and a very early Tristana too, so could wind up contesting the Hellion tree. A lot of people looking rats very early in this lobby.
Yeah, and you had mentioned it too. Like, so many of the players were very much leaning towards Hellion, according to the games they have been playing previously. And you'll notice Aegon here, going for the pre-level here, sells the Tristana and moves up. So that's a pretty big difference as well. Doesn't really have any items to support that. We're looking at Frozen Heart and Ionic Spark. It's pretty open to which direction you're going to be going. So I feel like for Aegon here, it's a lot of, what's the first real item that you find that's focusing on damage? Kiyun picking up a Tristana with the cloak.
Yeah, just to build on your Aegon point, right, he has slammed completely directionless items. There is a lot of good and bad to that. The good is he can play anything from here and he can just wait to see what items and units he gets. The bad is sometimes from this spot you don't wind up getting offered items that actually give you direction. So you see him taking armor, another relatively directionless item, right? Gone are the days of Dusk, for example, where you could kind of go full tank and have damage still. So he will need to commit at some point to an AP or an AD tree. Just has no items to support that yet. He has 1 Riven with this armor and another Riven in his shop. It looks like he's opting out of that and into skirmishers, continuing to build a strong board, right? The items have been slammed well. He has kind of some natural frontline, backline in the brawlers, plus he's got some damage coming from the skirmishers, but no real path for Aegon that is clear yet. Meanwhile, over to Setsuko's board, one of the players that slammed an early Sunfire, certainly among, if not the very strongest early game slams right now.
Yeah, and I really love the team that Setsuko had available to there. Hop it over to Spencer's board to take a look. Is Setsuko at the moment, and that's a very Yasuo start that we saw over on Spencer's side. But taking a look at this Olaf, that is a very powerful Olaf. Sunfire plus the Last Whisper on a 2-star Olaf. That thing, it's going to be really tough to lose around with when that's what you have equipped with the 3 Sentinel, 2 Dawnbringer, 2 Assassin.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you thinking about what this means, right, as we're heading into the back half of Stage 2 in terms of your Ball Street trades, there's an interesting dynamic in the meta right now where the people who are win streaking early, right, absolutely can snowball games and win, but it's a little bit harder to do that and play from kind of a quote-unquote standard board where you're leading into a 4 or a 5 cost carry. The comps that we see winning lobbies more often are the Hellions we've talked about. It's the Yasuos of the world as well. You want 3 stars on your board if you can. And so just kind of scouting around, you've got a couple good Hellion openings, and you do have that very early Yasuo with the RFC and the Runaan's Hurricane Slam, so potentially go over and buy a little Spencer stock, everybody. I think there's some good value there at the moment.
Yeah, I think for Setsuko here as well, this is a very clean start. Again, the Sunfire, just a very strong item. Last Whisper, very key damage item, and then you have a cloak hanging out for anytime you find like a bow or you find a blade that's a Bloodthirster or a Runaan's at that point. This feels like a great start. If you're on Setsuko's side, the 5-win streak has been accomplished as well. The only player to hit 5 win streaks leading into the Krugs now. That's a lot of extra gold you're going to be getting for this powerful board. And my gosh, there's just no room. It feels like for the Yasuos at this point. It just feels like get more powerful skirmishers.
Yeah, definitely not something that he is interested in, but Spencer would give, his firstborn for that shop, right? A Lee Sin and 2 Yasuos in that spot. We're over on Sarah's board for the first time. She has the early Tristana too. She does have one other Hellion unit in play. She's got the incredibly powerful Dawnbringer 3-cost pair in Nidalee and Riven. Unclear what she's kind of looking from right now, right? She's got a ton of AD items, an extra sword, an extra bow now. Definitely can go into the Hellion path if she wants to. The kind of original way on this patch that Hellions were getting played was re-rolling a lot on level 5 and then kind of going to 6 once you've gotten some of your 3-star, your Kled, your Poppy, maybe a Ziggs. Now a lot of people are leaning into this new style of going to level 6, re-rolling for 2 costs, right? And even 3 costs in Misfortune, in Thresh, really leaning heavily towards the Kinnan and to the Tristana. So it will be interesting to see what Sarah decides to do from this path, not away from re-rolling Hellions necessarily in this spot. I know you will play Hellions from basically anywhere, so are you looking at this and saying it's definitely a Hellion angle, Nathan?
Well, I don't want to say definitely because we're having the swords line up as well, but you're going to have to make this decision at some point in level 6. Where you're heading in this spot. If you want to go Rangers don't want to hang out at level 7 for very long. In fact, I feel like that Aphelios or something to that degree is pretty poor at level 7. I feel like it's very strong at level 8 if you can manage to get everything executed. I feel like right now what's missing from Sarahlin's side is a lot of Hellion stuff. I feel like Tristana is set up pretty well. I feel like you have a decent amount of gold. I feel like your health isn't the worst spot in the world. And so, a lot of this boils down to, I think, what you end up choosing to do in a spot like this. I think the more gold you spend and the more rolling you do right now, the harder it is to go for the Tristana at this point. But again, with 2 blades and a bow hanging out, doesn't feel like it's the easiest thing in the world. However, if you can roll and make your board strong enough that you're winning a lot of rounds, I feel like those rolls can be changed quite a bit. But that's a sell for that Tristana 2 right there, and that means a lot of this is going to be changing. This looks to me like it's going to be a Nidalee and Riven reroll, and I think that's part of what this rolling was trying to demonstrate.
Yeah, Sarah kind of staying open to a bunch of different paths, figuring out where she wants to go. She's going to commit the Bloodthirster and the Deathblade onto the Nidalee, so just using this as a stabilization point. Does not look like she's interested in playing reroll. These items are quite good on Riven, not very good on Nidalee long term, but very good on Nidalee in the short term. Unfortunately, going up against Setsuko's board, she has upgraded a couple of units, but still kind of in transitional phase. Setsuko, meanwhile, with that incredibly strong board, everything upgraded for Setsuko, plus the powerful itemization early, just continuing to roll over the lobby. Meanwhile, our other win-streaking player, Spencer, with that early Yasuo and the good items. Let's definitely keep an eye on Spencer. I said coming in, I liked Setsuko as, the highest average placement, but not necessarily to win the lobby. I really like Spencer to win the lobby right now for those of you trading over on Ball Street. Ducking over to Kyun's board, he's scouting around, giving a sense of where everyone else is at. Looks like Bert is going to be a Hellion gamer. Checking out some possible A-bomb lines, looking at Sarah's board, looking at everyone's board but his own. So, rub your crystal ball. What do we think he's playing? We have a second Man of Culture, 2 Hellion players in this lobby. Kyun, one of them.
Yeah, and Kyun, one of the things I've noticed about watching Kyun just over the course of, this entire set, where I took a, much deeper notion of what he was actually doing. I feel like that Kyun is just very strong at managing how their gold is going to function. I've been super impressed with how Kyun actually handles their economy and takes advantage of it to a certain degree. And right now, this Tristana, 2 very strong items. It looks like they're in a great spot. 44 gold with what was a 2 win streak here, but it's eventually going to take a loss here. And I feel like this loss has a lot to do with just how aggressive players are being. The more gold they spend, the harder it is for this Tristana spot to save their gold and keep winning at this point.
Yeah, plus Aegon, we saw a slam to Sunfire, so has this generically incredibly powerful tank early with the Ionic Spark, the Sunfire, the Frozen Heart, stalling and dealing all sorts of fun damage, so all of a sudden that tank becomes a carry. Very, very challenging to deal with at this stage for Kyun's board. Winds up taking a 3-cost belt, a solid item. I didn't see, he does not already have the Morellos onto Kennen, so really prioritizing that item since he has the 2 core items onto Tristana. Tristana is a unit that does incredibly well with the Last Whisper because of its longer range. You don't want to get stuck on a tank, and the lifesteal is incredibly important. It gets a lot of value out of it from the extra attack speed from its ultimate and the Hellion trait as well. So he's kind of considering that unit done, right? There's a bunch of other items that he can go on that. He can put the Radiant item, which we're 1 round away from that, so now leaning towards that Morellonomicon, super, super important. Looking at Sarah's board, who wound up completing a Ginsu's, such a strong Nidalee in the mid game from that spot.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have felt I've played a lot of that Nidalee Riven reroll style, and I tend to, for whatever reason, just keep hitting Nidalee before I hit Riven, and the Rage Blade on Nidalee felt like it's a big impact. Kind of taking a look at, Keen's board here as well, and going further into that, I feel like this belt was, pretty smart take, honestly, kind of looking at the carousel and how this position's back. Kennen is going to want a Morellos. If you roll a Morellos from here, it means you have a belt plus a sword, which could be a big deal. You can still turn that into like an Infinity Edge. Just feels like that Kiyun does a very good job of having like a notion of what is going to be occurring next in terms of where the items are and in terms of where the gold's going.
Yeah, even knowing what's occurring next in terms of choosing his demise there, we look over at his Radiant options. A lot of really good generic options. The Radiant Redemption is one of the best Radiant items in the game. Choosing to go for a Tristana option there, which does make sense. When you look at the items that he has available, he can look at that as half of a Guardian Angel and half of a Morellonomicon for his Kennen, so rounds out his composition really nicely. Also probably the largest power spike at this stage, considering that he didn't really know what direction he wanted to go with his Tristana third item. Rolls a little bit more, gets another upgrade. He's in a solid spot, right? And the question is, how many people are going to be contesting, how many people are holding these units, and which one of these is hits. He looks over at Aegon's board, who has 5 Tristanas, or sorry, Bert's board, who has 5 Tristanas. So as I said coming in, you had 3 players in Spencer, Bert, and Kiyun that are playing a lot of Hellions, 2 of them going head to head, Spencer bowing out with this really early Yasuo.
Yeah, and I saw that Infinity Edge that was on the Tristana as well. It's a little bit better than the Deathblade is, but the Deathblade, not too bad. A lot of lifesteal that you get if Tristana is able to kill, a unit or 2. But look at that, gets stunned, and then the Yasuo able to finish this off. So Spencer picking up a win here as well. Keenan, 3 losses in a row despite this.
Spencer has a Diana 2 at level 6. That's not something you see every day. Pretty good unit in stage 3. Hopping over onto Emily's board, I talked about her as being one of my favorites, both on the 8th place market and on the 1st place market, and I feel very vindicated about that pick right now. We see her scouting around. She's leaning into the AD tree. Never got the Draconic trait online, which is a little bit of a bummer. Makes it a lot harder for her to kind of snowball her economy. I would say leaning more towards 8th than 1st from this spot, Nathan. Would you agree or disagree with that?
It's a tough spot to be in. A lot of gold is being found here. 2 Irons in place. I think a lot of it has to do with how this roll is going to go, because this is a big one right here. Finds an upgrade with the brand. Again, has 2 Irons sitting in play, but it's really hard to get that rolling. Going to complete this Lux and jam that into play. A couple of Brawlers here holding into place, but you're going to have to keep rolling gold here. Vel'Koz gets found, and I think that's the direction there. That you notice that Lux making a big deal. The Rel that got picked up, that's a big deal here as well. Changes out to be the A-Bomb plus the Vel'Koz, and that feels like some pretty good notion that Emily had there. This was not an easy one, I think, to just spot if you're looking at this, but I think if you have the experience for it, this makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, she plays in this AP tree all the time, playing Abomination in a ton of her games. This is a really solid transition from Emily. She gets all the units she's looking for. She finds that Rel, she finds that Vel'Koz to hold these items. Vel'Koz 1 is not going to be able to carry into the late game, but definitely capable of carrying into the mid game, stage 4. Very strong unit, and she has that Radiant Gunblade, which is one of the best Vel'Koz items. So much power in the healing, but we see Sarah Lynn's Nidalee absolutely wreaking havoc. Sarah, very good recognition that this Nidalee will be able to carry through the mid game. She's also holding 2 more Nidalees on her bench, so hold the phone, Nathan. Maybe she is re-rolling Nidalee from this spot.
Yeah, I mean, the Rage Blade, I think, makes sense with this. Is that a Trap Claw that gets found? Are we doing Dawnbringer? I noticed that the Emily was looking at the redeemed spatula for this, and honestly, I feel like once you have these 3 redeemed, like these are the 3 you're typically looking for when you're playing redeemed on this comp.
Yeah, she could easily give up on the Abomination, right? So all 3 of the Abomination units, replace them with redeemed units. The Sunfire moves over to the Rel. Unfortunately, in this spot, she can't do that in the short term, right? She's just got the 2 Abomination units, and the Brand and the Callista are her upgraded units, right, along with this Lux. So she can't afford, gives up too much board power at the current state, but definitely with that spatula, I would lean towards the Redemption tree or the Redeem tree over the kind of classic Abomination. Meanwhile, Aegon, we were talking about what he was going to do. He has a Pike 3 on this board, accompanying this really tanky Sejuani that he built early. Does have a Deathblade, so it looks like he's going to be leaning towards some form of an assassin-based carry to go along with this Pike 3. A very bizarre board from Aegon. Will be a lot of fun to follow along and see what he can make happen, although low on HP, low on gold. not the best spot for Aegon, I will say either. Definitely some 8th place stock trending up for Aegon.
Yeah, that was level 6 Aegon as well, by the way. That was not a level 7 roll down. That was still on 6, so looking a bit tough over there. Emily finding a win on their side, but not a lot of improvement here. Finding a Syndra, it's starting to open up the Invoker spot, so I feel like right now the Abomination is really just kind of holding fort until you really get a pure direction for this. Let's say you go to 8 and you find a Fiddlesticks and you find some items to support this A-Bomb, or you find items to support the Redeemed a little bit better. It feels like the A-Bomb could be here. It feels like 6 Redeemed could be here. So I think for Emily, this is just about paying attention to the units that are really showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. Very flexible from this position, right? Different players will have different leans, but not in any way trapped into one direction over the other. Going up against Kiyun, who does have 5 Tristanas at this point, 5 Misfortunes, 5 Threshes, also a Hellion spat. So much potential power for Kiyun. Will he be able to deal with Emily? Wow! Lasering the Tristana out of mid-air, Nathan. The snipe is on.
And honestly, it's something that I'm noticing big is just the difference on the Radiant Hex Tech there. The fact that it's healing the lowest unit is buying so much extra time for the Vel'Koz there. Yeah,
Vel'Koz with that unit absolutely slaps. So much value for itself, keeping itself healthy. So much value for the rest of the team. Oftentimes, units will try to collapse around it to kill it, and so it's able to get lineups for extra damage and therefore extra healing. It's just a really, really strong item unit combination. One of my favorite things about the birth of the Radiant items is things like that, right? Not a lot of people excited to take the Gunblade, but people are figuring out now that on Vel'Koz and on Yasuo specifically, that item slaps.
Yeah, buying extra time for your main carry, you love to see that. Aegon taking a look at what else has been offered here, finds themselves a sword with a little bit of gold, and here comes the
a tome.
The Stimmy. Yeah, tome could be really big here for an assassin comp as well. Revenant spat offered. That feels like a pretty key take if you're going to follow through on Nocturne. Now, I'm not quite certain that this is going to be a follow-through on Nocturne at this point, though.
I think it is, because I'm not really sure what else he's going to play from here. He's level 6, so the chances of playing a non-3-cost carry in this spot feels really, really low. He appears to be rerolling for Brawlers, although maybe not buying these Nunus, so maybe just kind of pushing levels and trying to play for like a 5th or a 6th place from the spot. Definitely not where you want to be. Like you said, this was a level 6 roll down, not a level 7, and didn't get strong enough, but might be strong enough to be Kiyun, who is, I would say, very weak for the stage of the game. No 3 stars because he's contested, but I guess very weak, but not so weak as to lose to Aegon. Aegon looking real rough. Still holding the Tristana, though, by the way. Respect that.
A lot of level 6s across this lobby. Gosh, reroll is so just very interesting to me, where it feels like that these compositions should be outscaled pretty easily, but if they manage to hit and succeed, it's a big deal. Emily finding a bunch of this for her own on the stimulus package. Revenant, Legionnaire, Renewer. Ranger is out of the question, I think. Wow, this is looking really interesting to me. The Revenant is looking quite good. But the Renewer feels like it could be good as well. You have an Ivern sitting on in play. Like, where does this go? The A-Bomb Renewer, that thing's very strong. The Renewer going on to Volibear, I could see that.
Yeah, totally agree. Ooh. A lot of different directions that she can go in this spot, going up against HJW, the other Vel'Koz player. Vel'Koz 2, but only a single tier on it. Meanwhile, Emily's Vel'Koz 1, heavily itemized with among, if not the very best items, so a really good spot for her. Can she tear through the A-Bomb? She can, and I do not think even if this Vel'Koz is able to cast, it's going to be enough. Goes over on the Lux, so it's relatively harmless, but eventually Emily's Vel'Koz will reign supreme.
Hextech is no joke. I'm watching it store the biggest unit and keep it alive for like another, 3 or 4 hits that's taking place, and that is just so much extra time for that Vel'Koz. It just feels like it's safe to get that second one off. Normally I'm just like, I'm hoping my Vel'Koz gets its second ability off, and when you have that Hextech, it feels like it's happening a lot more. Over on Spencer's side, this Diana 2 has been here for quite a while, and you notice a lot of build-up trying to chase down some 3 stars here.
Yeah, a lot of build-up, a lot of possible direction, or a lot of possible power, I should say, from Spencer. Spencer, top of the lobby in HP, has 7 Yasuos, has the extra Dianas, thinking about Diana 3 in the spot, now has 6 Lee Sins. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your internet points, team, but this looks like a very high chance of a first place. I also have to say that the Mad Lad has a Tristana 2 on the side of his bench. You love to see it, Nathan.
Grief them! Punish them! You got to take it away. Look, that's one of the best ways to beat the Tristana's players, is literally just taking the Tristanas away from them, so it's harder to make a 3-star Tristana.
Yes. Could not agree more. Just so much value, particularly in a lobby where 2 players are playing the Tristana. It just you love to see it. This is TFT at its best.
Yeah, the Shroud delaying the use of the Lux plus the Volibear in that spot as well. And meanwhile, you're just watching this Yasuo. Yasuo has been able to turn up quite a bit, but gets hit by the Vel'Koz afterwards. The rest of the team gets wiped. Spencer taking a 14-point hit from Emily there, who moved up to level 8, and Aegon dropping down to 10. But that's a 3-star Yasuo that just got found. Holy smokes, that is big.
Yeah, that is really big. The question now is what does he want to do? Okay, so he's gonna level. He's gonna immediately improve his board in such a strong spot. I definitely would love to see him scout around, both because I would be curious for the positioning of the Shroud, right, in order to make sure he lands that, but also, selfishly for us, I want to take a look at Bert's board. I want to see the relative power level of the Lust Lobby and see if anything is going to be able to stand toe to toe. Ooh, a big Aphelios 2 hit from Sarah Lynn, so she gets a lot stronger transitioning off of that in Italy.
Up to Bearsaurus, or Bertosaurus here, excuse me. Kennen, 3-star, just a Sunfire Cape though. Tristana hop into the back. And again, that Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, Last Whisper, I feel like this is one of the strongest combos you can get, but that Tristana needs to be 3-star. And if it's not 3-star, what that means is you are not killing this team in time, and that gives the Yasuo plenty of time to find its way through the rest of this team. Bert taking a big hit here, still on level 6, down, takes 18, and Aegon gets knocked out as well, takes 15 damage. HJW picking up a win, and Sarah Lynn is still not able to find that victory. You know, I just touched a tough spot here. The Radiant, I feel like the Stimulus could really help here, but this Aphelios, I feel like so many things have to line up for this to work properly that it's just a difficult composition to really fall into.
Yeah, she lacks frontline right now. That Diana 2 is big. Huge chance of the Nightbringer spat here. Oh, God. I mean, the Assassin Lee Sin is pretty good, so she definitely takes that. But the Nightbringer spat, 6 Nightbringer, just such a strong trait that if she's able to get that, Nightbringer spat, it's just a massive power spike for her composition. Going into HJW's board, who has a very awkwardly built composition, she is one off Vel'Koz 3, but a lot of items on brand, despite that fact, a very awkward-looking abomination. But hey, a Frozen Heart onto this Aphelios. Aphelios is really struggling to ramp up, and I think it's going to be enough. It looks like, I spoke too soon. The CC comes out. Okay. Wow. All right. It is enough. Sarah's really struggling, figuring out. She sells. It looks like she wanted to sell the extra Aphelios to make gold, but wasn't able to do it. Tough spot for Sarah. Aegon, by the way, goes out in 8th place. So for those of you who were holding that Aegon 8th stock, you were rewarded. Everybody else, better luck next time.
I'm just looking at so many of these different spots. So, I noticed that the one Vel'Koz away from Vel'Koz 3 was the Spellweaver Fiddle that ended up taking place. That's a composition that was shown to me by you and Dan, and I tried to play this Spellweaver Fiddlesticks a bit, and it just feels like a very difficult comp to execute. It feels like you have to really know what's going on and how to get to these pathways in order to find that.
Yeah, I think... Sorry, just to chime in on that, because it's become this very popular new build. I think that it's a really misunderstood build. I think that people don't recognize that the power of it is in getting the brand 2 with the blue buff online really early and kind of dominating the mid game, because that unit is so powerful at that stage of the game. But if you're transitioning into it late, you're going to really struggle, and you're going to need to find other carries. It's also not likely to be a first place composition unless you hit a brand 3 insanely early. It's more of a play for top 4 composition than it is go for first. Sarah scouts, moves the Diana, and punished for scouting. You hate to see that.
Well, it's against a composition also that is in a very unusual spot. Tristana is still at 2, where it's MF and it's Kennen found at 3-star. The Aphelios gets the ability off and perhaps lives there, but is now getting targeted by the Kennen. Needs to get a big ult here. Finds a big ult. Is that enough to win this fight? If you can beat a 3-star Kennen and a 3-star MF in that spot, that is a great situation to find yourself in.
It is. I think she was into a 2-star Tristana in that spot. We had Bertosaurus hit the 3-star Tristana, but Kiyun's still on Tristana 2, it looks like. Does have the MF3, does have the Kinnan 3, so definitely a lot of power, but the main carry of this composition is Tristana, and with another player having Tristana 3 and Spencer still holding the Tristana 2 on the bench, the Mad Lad is denying the units. Such a painful spot for Kiyun, who is 1 off of the Lulu 3, 2 off the Thresh 3, 2 off the Tristana 3, but really needs to find that Tristana soon. Otherwise, it looks like a bottom 4 for Kiyun.
I mean, this is still level 6 that Kiyun is at.
Yeah, he can't go anywhere. This composition just gets outscaled. That's the tough thing about this composition. It's why it's so powerful when uncontested, because when uncontested and re-rolling for a 2 cost, eventually you will hit, and the composition stabilizes pretty hard in the mid game with the Tristana 2, but Tristana 2 is just not good enough to carry late against actually good boards. It is enough against Emily's board, which is apparently not an actually good board by this definition, doing enough work from the Kinnan and the Misfortune. But you know what? If he's not able to find Tristana 2, it is very unlikely he is going to be able to win this lobby. He is also close to naturaling level 7, Nathan. This man has been re-rolling on level 6 for an hour and a half.
You don't natural level 7 every single game? Yeah. What are you doing with your gold?
You know, every once in a while I like to press the F key in addition to the D key, but I'm crazy.
Guardian Angel getting found. I'm never upset about finding Guardian Angel.
Yeah, Guardian Angel is just a really good generic item, has a lot of power on frontline units and backline units. This is his final opportunity to roll at this level. His odds of 2 costs will go down just a little bit as he hits level 7. Definitely not like he cannot find the unit there, but, you know, just still 2 Tristanas away. He chooses to level, very interesting, Tex and the Mystics. Meanwhile, HJW with the Vel'Koz 3, can she play spoiler? There's not a ton of people who are capable of beating Spencer's board, but if she positions well and gets that Vel'Koz laser onto the Yasuo early, she might be able to pull it off. Going into Setsuko's board, playing a much more kind of standard 2 Cavalier spats, actually. It's a 6 Sentinel, 4 Cavalier, a very fun board. Yasuo ulting away from the Vel'Koz. The Abomination gets access onto that Yasuo, and here comes the Vel'Koz ulti. Wow! Not able to out DPS the Lucian 2 with the Radiant Bloodthirster. So much healing coming out from this unit.
Oh my gosh! I think that might be enough to save it there. He gets another one off, and there's a big shield. HW level 3, the 3-star Vel'Koz not enough to take on Setsuko at level 9 with that Lucian. So Emily ends up falling in 7th place. This is stage 6-2, and we still have 6 players alive.
Wow, such a close fight, such good adaptation from Setsuko too. Giant Slayer, an item that most people do not build ever, think it's really underpowered, doesn't get you a lot of impact because of the 1750 threshold on a ton of units, but in this situation, with this many people 3-starring units, we see the combination of the Bloodthirster plus the Giant Slayer into that Vel'Koz 3, and the Lucian 2 is able to out-sustain the damage from the Vel'Koz 3. Absolutely wild. Repositions beautifully to dodge the Radiant Shroud, and on the right side into this Yasuo. The Diana ulti does go off, though. Lucian is going to be ulting relatively late in this fight. It is at the Yasuo. Yasuo with that Titans as his third item is going to be a little bit more tanky than we're used to. The Diana ult again with the Shojin in the second tier, and this Yasuo is ramping up. I do not think Setsuko can stop it, but he does survive. Ooh, he does not survive. It is perfect fatal damage of 5th place. So brutal. Kiyun, by the way, with that Tristana 2 sneaking into the top 3. HGW with the Vel'Koz 3 and the Tristana 3 Bertosaurus Hellions rounding things out. It feels a little bit like it's Spencer's world and everyone is living in it. Maybe Bertosaurus is capable of doing it. Those Hellions are quite strong.
I mean, this is like nuts how this has worked out here. And Spencer finally realizing, wait a second, I don't have to hold this anymore. I can sell these Tristanas, cash in that little bit of extra gold, and see what's going on here. Spencer at 49 gold, 50 gold, at level 8, and at the top of the lobby. Like, this is crazy how well managed this has been, but it's up against the 3-star Vel'Koz now, but the Vel'Koz gets moved. However, it is right at that mana usage, and right here it hits the Yasuo and wipes it out. HJW, I think, is going to end up winning this round.
Yeah, the Diana is still there and can theoretically cast if the timing is perfect to disrupt this Vel'Koz ultimate. There's not a lot of damage left, but yeah, the HW is going to win that round, proving that gods can bleed. And a lot of Ball Street folks getting pretty nervous. I saw the action really skyrocketing on Spencer, I think rightly so, but HJW playing some potential spoiler there with that Vel'Koz. Like I said, if the Vel'Koz gets that damage onto Yasuo early in the fight, that single cast is capable of wiping it out. So Spencer going to have to be very, very careful about the positioning. Obviously got the Diana in the right place in that fight, but the Yasuo in the wrong place. Meanwhile, he finally gets the Stimmy. Be interesting to see what he winds up getting from this tome. Also does not get offered the Nightbringer. Definitely going to go for Mystics. You know, this is a situation where he's been re-rolling for a long time going for these 3 costs, but I wonder if it might be correct to consider just leveling and playing a bunch of Mystics. The question is, does a bunch of Mystics actually do anything into Vel'Koz 3? So much base damage on that unit. A lot of possible hits still in that Lee Sin and that Diana 3. Diana 3, not a unit we get to see every day, but would be a lot of fun. Meanwhile, going up against Qiyun, I think it would be very hard for Qiyun to win this fight with this Tristana 2, but I've been wrong before. Could I be wrong this time, Nathan?
Well, the Lulu 3 is there. It gets peeled by the Diana. The Lulu 3 is going to go off here, shuts down the Yasuo. The Kennen overlaps on the polymorph from Lulu as well there. So I feel like this Yasuo has got plenty of time, but gets threshed again. This Yasuo it needs some time to attack. It didn't have it. However, the board has been weakened a considerable amount. Is the Lee Sin with the Cavalier plus the Redemption enough to win this?
Yeah, I think that it is. I mean, we've got a Misfortune 3 wailing away on the Lee Sin. Lulu's going to cast again. Here comes a Misfortune 2 out. Ooh. Another Polymorph. Qiyun survives. And HJW dies with the Vel'Koz 3. This is a wild finish. That was some crazy fight RNG, by the way. The Kennen stun, the Thresh stun, the Lulu polymorph, a second Thresh hook. I mean, this Yasuo basically did not fight for Spencer. But with HJW down, things become a lot easier for Spencer because he doesn't have to worry about Mystics at all. It's just an Ironclad game at this point. He's playing against 2 people on the Hellion tree. We talked about Hellions as being the best composition in the game. Even when contested, even with Spencer holding the Tristanas for the entire game, our top 3 is rounded out by 2 Hellion players to go along with this very high roll Yasuo 3. As we head into the final fight, here is the Tristana 3. The Thresh hooks the Yasuo. Yasuo is already dead, and this fight is essentially already over because this Tristana 3 is just going to wail away so much damage from this Tristana in comparison to on Qiyun's board where it's a Tristana 2. And once that Yasuo goes down, Spencer just doesn't have a threat left over. Qiyun finally dies. It was a hell of a run from him, getting contested and not able to get that final Tristana as we head into what will likely be the final fight and stage 7. Take a breath, Nathan. Talk to me about this final matchup, Hellions into Yasuo.
I mean, Hellions is, I think, very powerful. However, there is something that really changed here, and that's the 3-star Lee Sin that took place. You know, one of the biggest problems I've had when playing Tristana is that when Tristana jumps over the Lee Sin, if the Lee Sin slams, when that happens, it's very difficult for that Tristana to stay alive if any damage is focused on it. So I think a lot of this is positioning. It's how the fight RNG can work out to see if the Yasuo can find a focus on the Tristana, but it also helps to have a sustain item on this Yasuo, which it does not have right now. So for Spencer, I feel like it's about trying to 3-star more units here. You know, they've been looking for this Diana. I think the Diana is in a reasonable spot right now, but everyone that has a bunch of 4 costs, they've been knocked out of the game at this point. So the whole board's been polluted. We got 9 more Vel'Kozes thrown in there. We had everyone else's 4-cost units. You know, the Hellion comp doesn't really run that many 4-costs. So finding this Diana upgraded is a very difficult thing. So a lot of it is this positioning. I think that the Shroud's very good positioning right here. I think the Frozen Heart's in a good spot. It's going to hit the board here. The Nautilus isn't going to get crippled, but that Lee Sin feels like it might not be in the right spot for this to work.
Yeah, Yasuo with no sustain, though, in a much better position, does not get Thresh hooked this time, does want him taking the second half of the Kennen stun, but Yasuo is still up and wailing away. A much better fight for Spencer, as this Yasuo is still alive. The Lee Sin 3 in the backline is getting focused by this Tristana, and in this situation, the Tristana's extra attack range is its demise because it jumps away from the Lee Sin, but because it has so much range, it continues to auto-attack the tank and never re-aggroes onto the Yasuo. So, you know what? Spencer made it close, kept a lot lot of people on their seats, but I basically talked about it from like stage 2, 4, and just the prophecy was fulfilled. So many people contesting the other trees. Spencer gets the very early Yasuo online, does not hit the Diana 3, right, but does have enough power between the Yasuo 3 and the Lee Sin 3 to take it home. A very clean lobby win for him, and a couple Rat players rounding out the top 3.
Yeah, and this was the very early Diana as well. Like Diana 2 was on level 6,
5 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really early on, and to me the big one there is in that final game. It's just the difference that the Lee Sin makes when it has the Cavalier spat and not. You know, I'm used to that Lee Sin really taking its time to get across that board when the Tristana jumps, and it always makes me worry a bit. When it's got that Cavalier spat, it is just straight up just 100-meter dash bolting over there and then slamming the ground to make sure that Tristana is not attacking away. That's a big win at the end there. You know, it just, again, kind of shows that for the Yasuo, I think like one of the most important things is to be finding units and then upgrading the correct units to 3-star, and not nearly as much about what that third item is. You know, the RFC, the runes, those are very great, but that third item, it can be so many different things with that Yasuo.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of item versatility there. The sustain on Yasuo would be ideal. I think there were multiple fights where we saw the chain CC, him getting a cast off, and if he had been able to heal back to full, he could have theoretically survived the fight, but definitely not enough. Our lobby winner, Spencer, goes alongside our lobby loser, Aegon. We could say good team chemistry there. 1st and 8th, very well rounded. Nathan, not a great start, but not a bad start either.
Hey, 1st or 8th, that's the very typical saying for that kind of position there, right? But, you know, taking the lobby win, you get $50 if you're able to win the lobby, so that's a nice little addition that you get for competing in these spots right now. But that was it for Lobby A, and we noticed, again, it was the Yasuo and the Lee Sin that took place here. We're going to get the scoreboards now that take place from both lobbies. Again, we had 2 different lobbies that were fighting here. Take a look at Lobby B. Is Ramkev able to get that 1st place, and Soju, meanwhile, finishing down in 8th, and Goobums, not 1st place. Everyone knows that Goobums deserves that 1st.
Yeah, don't worry. A lot of action on the next game for Goobums. Ramkev making me look smart. Once again, I always pick this man in tournaments. There is no better North American tournament player than Ramkev. He plays everything super well. I also have to say that, you know, Soju talked a lot in the lead up to this event that he picked Prestivan because, you know, just for fun, they're friends and he wanted to hang out with him. I think it's the other way around, Soju. I don't know what to tell you. Prestivan carrying Soju in the first game, a 2nd for Prestivan, a 8th place for Soju, so an interesting start to say the least for the tournament for Soju.
Yeah, you can take a look at we got the team card for the winners of Lobby B that's taking place here. Again, Ramkev and I'm Jack. Ended up coming up with a nice one here. Monkey Dogs, $50 again for the Ramkev side of things. And you love to see that win. You know, Ramkev, this was like kind of funny. The first time I ever watched Ramkev stream, it was my wife actually. She was watching some TFT stuff, and she kept calling Kennen Kevin, because she thought that was the name that I was saying, and it was just Kennen. But I thought that was really funny, and so I remember telling Ramkev that I thought the Morello should go on to Kevin, because I just thought that was kind of a funny thing. And he went, "What?" And I go, "Kevin, your unit." He goes, "I'm Kevin." And then he just slams the Morello onto Kennen, and I was like, "Oh gosh, I didn't know that."
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, Ramkev, Kevin, a very fun player, very fun to watch stream, very fun to watch play, super positive attitude, really plays the game beautifully. As we take a look at the scoreboard, you remember that we have half of these teams, basically all of the teams on the left side of your screen, played yesterday. So, you know, Neanderthals, 30 points, more than anybody has right now, but very unlikely to remain in the top 8 by the time the day is over because there are so many points left to accumulate. You had Monkey Dogs being the only team, I think, to double top 4. Actually, I might be wrong about that. I think we are going 8th. No, actually, Burtosaurus got the 2nd, and I think HW, I can't remember if she got 4th or 5th, but very, very close start there. Goobum's team, don't worry, they're in the middle of the pack, Nathan. They're okay, hanging in there, heading into the 2nd game.
Yeah, these are the overall standings for now. We got 3 more games that are coming into play for the teams that you see on the right side currently. But again, that'll be getting mixed up as players continue to get more points and try to surpass that 30-point mark that we see there from day number 1. And so as we come into it now, with one game underneath the belts of the players right now, we started to see that Hellions got very contested and at the same time got very grief. So I'm curious how that's going to affect the lobby kind of moving forward. You know, Bryce, from your position, if you were a Hellion player in that spot, how would you be looking at game number 2?
I mean, probably the same way. They didn't get punished, right? One of them was very close to winning the lobby, right, within one fight of winning the lobby, and the other one, Kieran was level 6 for like natural level 7, basically, and still manages to get a top 3 with that. Now, to be clear, I don't think that's going to happen all the time. There were some extra conditions there, right? Kieran gets the MF3 on level 6. He finds the Hellion spat. He had the Kennen 3 as well, so definitely not like he hit nothing there, although Tristana is certainly the most important 3-star. So I don't know. Personally, I'm hoping every single player in the lobby not playing Hellions will follow Spencer's path and just buy and hold Tristanas for the whole game. Just grief these people, let them not get their 3-stars. I want to see something that's not Hellions performing well, though we did see Yasuo take home that first lobby win. So will be interesting. I will say, as we duck over to lobby B for game number 2, only one rat degenerate in lobby 2, not nearly as many Hellion focusers in that lobby, so we might get a totally different lobby complexion.
Kind of when I look at lobby B, it feels to me like there's a lot more players that, while they have very deliberate paths they like to take, that they kind of accept the idea of flexibility more. And it feels like here in 5.5, in the second part of this set, it feels like flexibility is a lot more rewarded in a lot of slots, aside from like quite literally exactly Tristana or a Yasuo composition. It feels like that those have very discovered and powerful paths that are, very much, kind of peeking out there. But, we've seen like the Heimer compositions be more difficult to assemble. We've been seeing Vel'Koz kind of step back into the meta at this point. We saw the A-bomb get abandoned when it got nerfed very early on in 5.5, but we've seen it kind of like slowly step back into the light as we've gotten through this as well.
Yeah, the meta's in a really great spot overall. I'm super excited for the patch tomorrow. I think it's going to take us from a really good spot to an amazing spot. Set 5.5 has been such a fun opener because so many different compositions are viable. We hop onto Ramkev, team captain of the Monkey Dogs, winner of Lobby 1, North America's best representative at previous Worlds, and my favorite TFT player. So excited to be hanging out with Kevin as we start this game. He picks up a sword, so we're leaning towards AD tree. This is a man that is willing to play anything and everything, so whereas some people see the spot and they're like, okay, that means I'm leaning Lucian from here, I'm leaning Jax from here, this guy sees Nidalee Jax, Riven, Auction, Aphelios. He sees some stuff that I'm not even seeing from this spot, right? Units that don't even exist yet, this man is capable of playing. He is so flexible in his approach. Oh, and he gets the Hellion opener. He is not normally a rat, but with that opener, he might have to. He'll scout. I would be surprised if he was willing to contest it, but he will scout around, and if he can kind of bully other people off of it, he might go for it. Meanwhile, he scouts 2 boards, and they're both just playing rats, so what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, you heard it from Bryce himself. Ramkev, very flexible player. Has the Tristan and the Kennen early on here, along with a sword, and kind of depending on the second item that you see here. Just again, very flexible. Sees the glove to go with it. Very unlikely that they commit to Tristan at this point, especially if another Tristana shows up like it does right here. Ramkev, he could still go any direction from this spot. He's very, very flexible.
He is. He's super flexible. He is, some people will see, okay, it's a really great Hellion opening and I need to play Hellions from here. He's laughing about it. I mean, this is not a man who
Hellions from here. Look at the board price.
No, he's not. Nathan, if we could open up a private Ball Street line on this about whether or not this man is playing Hellions at the end of the game, I am super down to take the not Hellions route. This guy is not a full degen. He does not commit reroll when he thinks it's going to be contested or when he could do other things from here. And you know what? What he sees from here is this is a board that can be strong, that can theoretically, preserve some HP early. Kennen could be a good AD item holder, right? He does not have to play Hellions from this spot, and so if the game slaps him in the face with 1,000,000 Hellion units, he will absolutely play it, but there are a bunch of people in this lobby who would definitely play Hellions from here. I would say he is maybe playing Hellions from here.
Let's pretend we did a fantasy TFT thing here. Just it's you and I, they're the only ones in the lobby. I'll give you a 1.25 to 1 odd there. Let's just we'll pretend that's the case.
I'm in. Sign me up. I cannot wait to get to the end of this and he's playing God, he'll be playing legendaries or Heimerdinger or something from here. Who knows, right? He's a total sicko. Going up against Rainzer. Did Rainzer have full Draconic online? I got so excited about, whether or not our boy Ramkev is going to play Hellions that I missed it. Got excited about our idea of a Hellion futures market for future iterations of Ball Street. Meanwhile, you do see Ramkev scouting around, watching these early fights. There's good value for him in this, particularly since he is thinking about, whether or not he wants to play Hellions. He needs to take really good stock of everyone's board to figure out how contested it is. He does grab that cloak. He hits that early Senna 2 as well. The conditions are leaning more and more. He's got a Bloodthirster and he's got a glove, so he's got, 3/4 of best in slot Tristana. I don't know, Nathan. You might wind up being right here. Time will tell, I guess.
I got lucky on this one. Everything fell into place right there at the end. The Senna is very powerful early on. I would say that like before stage 3, Senna is pretty much like at its peak power. And you have the 2-star Senna plus the pair of Tristanas, the Bloodthirster. You got to go that way a lot of times. We're looking over at Solus's board now, and Solus, this is like I feel like Solus is a player that every single time I've watched them play, so many different things have happened. Like when Fortune was in the meta, it felt like Solus every single time I watched them, they were forcing this immediate loss streak, open fort, find the Fortune, and try to get a big cash out thing. But I feel like in set 5 that Solus, I feel like they have been very flexible with a lot of the directions they take.
Yeah, Solus definitely has been flexible. I would say the most likely to play Hellions in this lobby is Solus, has the most Hellion games played on ladder recently. But you're right, Solus is one of our OG strong TFT players, very comfortable slamming items, very comfortable going in a bunch of different directions, also has played a bunch of Lucian and quite frankly a bunch of everything recently, so a little hard to predict where he goes. All we know about Solus right now is that he has a generically pretty strong opening, right? He's got the early Sejuani 2, such a powerful unit now. Adding the extra trait to Sejuani has made her such a fun unit in the early game, right? You can see she's got that Brawler for the extra HP. She's got the Cavalier for the damage reduction. She's got a Warmogs. This is a very, very tough unit to kill in the early game. The only issue with Solus' board is that damage is a little so-so, right? This Nidalee certainly capable of doing work, particularly with the Dawnbringer buff, but if Nidalee dies, where Solus' damage comes from, I do not know.
Very slow attrition is where it's you're hoping that the Sejuani lives long enough at that point. The Sejuani, the ability is pretty powerful. We're looking at it on a different board from that position there, but being able to land this additional armor plus the stun, it shuts down a lot of damage and just ends up cranking quite a bit more than you really expect from this unit. And so the Nidalee here getting pushed very low in this spot does need to dodge a bit more. It does not. And when the Nidalee can't clear off enough, the Sejuani does get isolated and pinned and get knocked down there. But Helen gets popped in that spot. Solus takes 4 in that position, and I really feel like this is a pretty nice spot for Solus to be in here. Again, you don't have like a ton of gold that's in play on your side of the board. You have good carousel positioning here, and I really feel like this particular spot is going to determine a lot of what your items are going to look like at the end of the day.
He's getting offered a 3-cost bow, so from this spot, I think he can definitely think about playing Yasuo. Scouting around, there is Rainzer already slammed the RFC, so Solus sees that and has to make a tough decision, right? He doesn't have, right, he's got 1 Nightbringer unit, Sejuani with that early Warmogs, and he's got 2 bows, plus he's got a cloak, so he can certainly lean in that direction, but, Yasuo we saw do really well in the last lobby, uncontested, similar to the Hellions. It's, does he want to contest it? He's thinking about it, Nathan. Ooh. If you're in his shoes, are we slamming this RFC and going Yasuo?
Look, I'm an item slammer, and I don't mind contesting anything.
Yeah, you are braver than I am, my friend. So he does slam the RFC. Nidalee, an excellent holder of this item, makes such good use of the attack speed, right? And also when she drops into melee form, so much extra range. Meanwhile, we're over on Prestivant's board, carrying Soju on team 8875. Prestivant is 100 HP at this stage of the game. An early Sunfire slammed. Not able to make 10 gold here, it looks like, keeping optionality open going into Jack, who has the very early Abomination, a brand 2, very good items. Good start for Jack as well. Can Prestivant maintain his win streak, though, into this Abomination?
I think so. This is a Senate 2 that's at the back, and again, Nidalee just dodges so much that it gives Olaf a bit of time to actually become impactful, even at the 1 star, and the Senate full health here. That's a pretty easy win. The 3 Sentinel, 3 Skirmisher, 2 Dawnbringer. I mean, this is level 5. I think that this combination of traits you're seeing on the side is the strongest you can get at 5. If all of these manage to get 2-starred, I mean, that to me is the insanity part of this lineup that can take place. So I think for Prestivant here, we're looking at the 5 win streak, very viable. It's very possible. However, nothing got improved on this 2-6 round here. Nothing was found that starred this board up a bit. But again, Sunfire Cape open, and I think the best traits that you can have for this stage of the game.
Yeah, definitely one of the strongest generic openings in the game is this Sentinel Skirmisher opening. You get a lot of damage, you get some extra tankiness from the Sentinels, you get to play a bunch of good units, plus that really early Sunfire Cape. You see a last-minute reposition from Prestivant over to the right-hand corner, trying to get better angling with his... it looks like he's going to pull the Lee Sin down and the Nidalee aggro as well, wow. So I think that positioning is working out okay. The Nidalee jumps away from his Senna, and his own Nidalee is able to clean it up, so the Senna is able to free DPS down there there, but I'm just not sure there's enough damage to get through. There's just so much tankiness. The Sejuani with the Warmogs and the Cavalier and the Brawler buff, the Nidalee wails away, and just like that, we have no Windstreakers heading into Krug's very unusual lobby complexion. You do have Prestivan and Soju, by the way, at the top, having a lot of fun memeing our friend Soju, but obviously one of the best players in North America, and Team 8875, at least for now, pole position.
Yeah, and this is again, kind of like a weird spot that I feel like Prestivan keeps falling into here, which just every single time they look at it, a window of units to purchase, it's just completely different from what they already have in play. And it's stuff that like is supporting the idea of swapping a direction. As we swap over to Kerm's side at this point, we're going to see what they're coming up with now. A lot of gold in place. The Last Whisper Bloodthirster, very indicative of the fact that you're going in AD position. It's just, where does this actually go from here? Because my experience with this has been Last Whisper isn't like super good on some of the AD units. It's very good on the AD units that don't really have an ability that I feel like that is forcing you to do something. Like, for instance, if you fell into Akshan there, the Last Whisper feels like it has to be on an off carry at that point.
Yeah, I mean, so these are definitely two of the best in slot Jax items. In fact, there's a lot of people who think that if he slams this Titans, it's literally the best in slot Jax, right? A lot of people would look at this and say this is absolutely the best Jax items. It opens him up to, now that he has slammed essentially 3 carry items, to grab a utility-oriented Radiant item, which is a really big deal because there are some awesome utility Radiant items in the Trap Claw and the Zephyr and the Redemption and the Sunfire Cape. There's just so much potential power there. So will be interesting to see what Kermex winds up getting offered. But, this direction could be in a few different places, right? Another great holder of most of these items would be Akshan, right? He can play Lucian with these items. There's a bunch of different places that he can go, although I think probably leaning Jax from the spot. Going up against Ramkev, who is level 5, does find the Tristana 2, and playing the early Hellion board, he does have Tristana 2, and he has the Kennen 2, so maybe that is our Hellion gamer after all, right? Definitely looking more and more likely as we go. Meanwhile, on Kermex's side, he is a player who likes to roll to stabilize boards in this position. Some people kind of greed a 4-1 spot, but I completely agree with the decision. Has a Lee Sin pair, really big deal. Finds a Nidalee. He would love to upgrade. Okay, I was going to say he would love to upgrade some of these 3 costs and get a carry online. He would really like to be able to upgrade this Aurelia as well. That would make a big deal since it's holding all of his items right now, but I don't think he can justify continuing to roll. He's already hit 2 3-star upgrades, plus, this board is just really expensive, right? He's down to 10 gold after only rolling like 3 times. Going up against Goobums, who has kind of a generic tank item start, no clear direction from Goobums. He does have the Abomination online, plus an Aurelia too. I don't think it's going to be enough to deal with this Lee Sin and Yasuo too, though. That's just a lot of power at this stage in the game on Kerm's side.
I mean, my gosh, plus surrounding him the Aurelia. And Aurelia is not like an easy-to-kill unit by itself. You stack on 3 valuable items onto it, and if you don't take care of that Aurelia right away, it's going to take care of you at that point. Swapping over to Goobum's side, and you had just mentioned it too, like nothing really that's directional here on Goobum's side of things, and I feel like that's where the A-Bomb, I feel like oftentimes steps in pretty well. You just need something to make sure that you're not taking too much damage at once, and so that's kind of the goal there, but again, no items falling onto the A-Bomb unit, and no clear direction here. I mean, I feel like this is like totally lost at this point. Like, where do you go from this? I feel like this is just, there's nothing here gives me an indicator.
Well, I think that's both a positive and a negative, as we've talked about, right? Like on the flip side, so there is no clear indicator of where he's going, mostly because he doesn't have his carry items sorted out. He has the Abomination. He could certainly throw a Titans onto the Callista and a Warmogs onto Nunu and stabilize this board on 4-1. I think he's going to want to make a decision based on what items he gets, right? What Radiant item he winds up taking. It's almost certainly going to be an offensive item given his current item complexion. And so he will pick that offensive item and then take direction from there. Given his HP situation, he's very low at 66. He doesn't have a lot of gold. He is for sure going to wind up trying to roll down to 4-1. So I would expect to see him play towards an out that he feels confident he can stabilize on 4-1. Goobum is definitely one of the better players in the field and has an enormous amount of flexibility. He takes a cloak. What does that cloak become, Nathan? He's got a sword open, so it could be a BT, and then he could be looking at trying to take like a Radiant RFC or a Runins and maybe contesting the Jax tree. Definitely a possibility, especially since he's already got that Aurelia 2 slammed. So I don't hate that direction. The spat could become a Cavalier spat, right, since you want to play Rel in that composition. So definitely a possibility there. He could also try to go 3-cost carry and like play Riven from here, right? He could put the BT. Okay, so he's going to play on Riven. And by the way, he could wind up just sticking with his board, right? He can absolutely just re-roll on level 7 for upgraded, to try to play. Oh, okay, so he's going to play the Knights. All right. A Dawnbringer spat slammed? Okay, so definitely looking like he's going to lean into a Riven carry type of board, reroll around that on level 7. I like this play from Goobums. He's thinking smart about where he's at right now, where he's likely to need to roll, and what he can stabilize in that spot.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really excellent spot here from Goobums as well. You know, seeing that you have the Spatula with the belt, that's a Dawnbringer. You get the Bloodthirster, one of the most important items you can have for pretty much any AD carry at that point whatsoever. Nidalee's in the window, and you have some Dawnbringers you've been holding on to on your side. So I think there's still a lot of work to get this team active and into a reasonable spot here. But, you know, I kind of given the situation they're in, I feel like this was the way to go.
Yeah, definitely a tough position. This is a spot where you are playing for, placement, right? You are not playing for first from Goobum's spot. He doesn't have the gold or the life total to be able to do that.
too. What the heck?
Yeah, the Aurelia is doing a lot of work with the Dawnbringer, with the Titans fully stacked, right? We're by the way taking a look at these items for the first time. Wow, the Hextech Gunblade gets offered for Jack. Very, very strong item. I can't imagine. Oh, he also has the Zenith Edge, so he could wind up going for the spell crit. No healing on Vel'Koz oftentimes feels really bad. The current, I think, best iteration of Vel'Koz is the Jeweled Gauntlet Infinity Edge, plus a Hand of Justice or the Hextech Lifeblade for some version of healing. I agree with the decision. I think it's smart to lean into the healing of the Vel'Koz. It's definitely lower, kind of cap power level. The Vel'Koz with the Infinity Edge and all those items would do in an unbelievable amount of damage, but less consistent. We saw how much work the Lifeblade did last time, or in the last game, right, on a Vel'Koz, so we're getting a chance to look at it again for Jack. Also using a level off cadence on 3-6, really wants to protect that win streak against his teammate Ramkev.
Yeah, I think this is a valuable spot to be in as well. If Ramkev's still in the pool at that point, how much damage can you really be doing? Maybe it's a bit much here with the level up, but I feel like protecting this 4 win streak is extremely important right now. You're going into a creep round here. Having a 5 win streak going into a creep round feels like one of the most magnificent outcomes that can happen in this game, and I feel like that 20 gold expenditure there, very much worth it. You're going to be on level 7. You're going to have more than 50 gold.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So let's take stock of the lobby. We talked about at the beginning of this stage that Precevent and Soju were 1-2. We've had a tale of 2 different stages for these 2 players. Precevent, 85 HP, really doing well in that stage. Soju, the opposite, 3 HP away from Stimmy as we head into Wolves. I would love to take a look at Soju's spot and see what's going on there. Jack and Reigns are the only win-streaking players. Jack is playing, obviously, this Vel'Koz in the AP tree. Likely to stay A-bomb based on his profile history, but could also choose to lean more towards a standard redeemed tree. We hop over with Soju. Soju has the Radiant Jeweled Gauntlet, looking to stabilize some form of an Abomination comp on this level. He is going to roll as far down as he feels like he has to in order to stabilize. He finds this early Karma. If he finds this Karma 2, it certainly is not bad. It can hold the Shojin right after the Karma rework last set. Karma can hold Shojin in addition to blue buff. Wow, choosing not to roll further. This is our streamer team. This guy is first or 8th at all costs, potentially living up to the team name, by the way, with the opening 8 and potentially another 8 on the horizon, choosing not to roll a bunch of gold here to stabilize, staying above 50 gold despite the fact that he is 43 HP. Time will tell how that pays off for him. He's going into Solus, who has a Yasuo 1, but you know what? Yasuo 1 is enough to run over Soju's board because Soju has a lot of 1-stars on his board himself. On the plus side for Soju, he is below the Stimmy threshold, the Radiant Blessing named Stimmy and popularized by Soju himself. It feels like he creates half of the TFT lingo. No gold, 1 component. Definitely not what Soju was hoping for in this spot. When you're the first person to get the Stimmy, you want to get a really impactful one, right? You want to feel like it's game changing. I do not feel like his game was changed by this rod. How about you, Nathan?
It did like complete a unit kind of, but you had a glove hanging out. That maybe could have been that spot as well. A couple of fiddles showing up as well, but I feel like maybe you're moving. Oh, nope. Okay, we're gonna stick with that spot. And I don't know. This looks pretty good to me. The problem with this is that it's Karma, right? Like Karma is just not a strong unit in the meta right now. Like every single composition feels like it's quite potent versus what this unit wants to offer. And I feel like the fight that we saw in the last one is indicative of that. And I feel like the fight we're going to see here is likely indicative of that as well. I do not feel like Tristana has had any problem whatsoever fighting against Karma.
Yeah. Tristana very good into this unit. Tristana very good in general into backline squishy carries that it can get access to. Unfortunately, he's positioned on the wrong side, and the A-bomb goes over and dashes and kills the Tristana. The Karma is safe for the entirety of the time. Ramkev, by the way, I have officially lost the futures market on Hellions. Ramkev is playing Hellions. We hop over to Goobums. He is now seeing this single component. Not a bad component, actually. If you're going to get one component in that spot, it's not a bad component to grab, but Goobum's in a tough spot. It looks like he did not get offered a Radiant item that would be good for his Riven carry. He has Riven 1 at this point. He is completely out of gold.
Yeah.
Riven 1, Nunu 1, Goobums is racing Soju for 8th place right now.
Yeah, this is just one of those spots where, again, you kind of look up and you go, I rolled all my gold and I just didn't find anything that fit. Like, this happens occasionally, and it's just a tough feeling to deal with. You know, you had a very clear direction with what you chased down. You had really tough items to handle, finding a direction like this at all, and this was, I think, a pretty, again, strong plan in hindsight of where it was. Your team is still not weak, but it's just not strong, and that's really the only way I can think to describe it right now. You know, until things get upgraded, this is just going to be a tough team to have to win with, and so for Goobums, time is limited by a tremendous amount, and again, you kind of got a weak Radiant item here. I think the Zephyr is helping. It's giving your team some attack speed. It's wiping out, potentially very strong frontline units at times, or backlines, just depending on where you need to be. But for right now, Goobums needs to find some upgrades on these units. If that Riven does not get upgraded to very quickly, this is going to be, I think, a race won by Goobums to that 8th place spot.
Yeah, it is definitely a race to a bottom there. I agree with you that Zephyr, the funny thing about Radiant items is that if you're in a spot where you've got your carry taken care of, like we were talking earlier about like a fully stacked, I think it was Kurum who had all of his damage items taken care of in stage 3, then grabbing the Zephyr is actually really good, right? Zephyr, one of the great generic utility-based Radiant items, but in Goobum's spot, he had already slammed a bunch of tank items and didn't have his carry sorted out, so he really needed a good Riven item. He also really needed to, find Riven 2 in this spot, and unfortunately not able to do that. So he's slowly transitioning off of the units he has. Finally winds up hitting the Riven 2, a really big hit. All of a sudden this board goes from, I would say, quite bad for this stage to simply okay. Definitely not excited to be in his spot, but maybe capable of winning a couple of fights and squeaking out a 7th or a 6th place. Meanwhile, we're hopping over on board with Rainzer, who is playing that Yasuo composition. Only 3 Yasuo so far, so very, very far away from the power level that we saw Spencer reach last game. He does get that Yasuo Zephyred early. Great scouting from Goobums, and that is potentially fight swinging, Nathan, and that is a really big deal. When you are fighting for placements, to have good scouting and to deal with your opponent's carry early is either going to save you a ton of HP or, in this case, net you a big fight win. So very, very well played from Goobums. Soju, meanwhile, is transitioned over to a Vel'Koz, a much better holder of those items and in that spot. So the battle for 8th is very hotly contested.
Yeah, and Ramkev, meanwhile, has found the Trist at 3 and the Kennen at 3, which are the 2 most important units of this composition to find at 3. I think once you get these to 3, it's very easy to focus purely on the levels at that point, as the Mystic in play has a big Shroud on that left half of the board. And I really just feel like this Shroud, if this Shroud is nailed properly, that opens up the Tristana to having plenty of time to find the right spot here and to not get assaulted when it jumps across to that corner if you have units over there. Going up against Goobums, Goobums does not have the Zephyr in the spot I think that they would necessarily want. The Daisy gets jumped out here, but that Tristana is just uncheckable, I think, from what Goobums has in play. This is a loss on Goobums' side.
Yeah, I generally speaking agree with that. The Tristana hopping over, dealing with that Riven in short order. Wow. This composition is one of the most powerful compositions in the game. For those of you looking to live trade, Kevin, our boy Ramkev, definitely has one of, if not the very highest likelihoods of netting a first place in this lobby. Like you said, he has the 2 most important 3 stars, and he's now able to push levels. We have 2 Yasuo players that are contested. We have a couple people playing 4-cost carries, a couple Vel'Koz players, Lucian player. No one, it seems like, is fully online. Last lobby, Nathan, it felt like we were watching a ton of people at like absolute peak power levels in TFT. This lobby doesn't feel like that at all. I'm not sure anybody gets to that level of strength, although only time will tell as we head into stage 5.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting where it's like in the previous lobby, in lobby A that we were watching, there were just so many people contesting Tristana that it never quite got there, but the compositions were still quite powerful. Still a lot of stuff was completed. In this one, Ramkev was kind of uncontested in this spot, and on 4-6 had a 3-star Kennen and Tristana, which feels like it's not early, but it's not late. And for Rainzer here, choosing to level up instead of continuing to chase the Yasuo, and I think that this is a wise choice just given the fact that if you don't go to 8 here and try to get something in play to help defend yourself, you fail to roll in that Yasuo, you're going down fast. So I think the focus here for Rainzer is just don't get the bottom 2 positions at this point. Just try to claw out as many extra positions as you can.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Rainzer playing really smart, especially with his teammate Goobum struggling in this lobby and almost certainly taking a bot for Rainzer. Just trying to net as many points as you can get. When you're contesting a 2-cost. The Yasuo did aggro on the Tristana for a second, but now it's off of it and the Tristana's onto the Yasuo. I just don't think he can deal with it. Ramkev's rat jumping all over the place. Good, not a bad loss for Rainzer in that spot, though. We hop on board with Prestivant, who has finally gotten to level 8 at 5-2, looking for a Lucian 2, or potentially looking to transition over to an Akshan carry if he can get it. Akshan would be a great holder of these items, although not the Last Whisper, since that is essentially built into his kit. Would really, really like to be able to find a Lucian 2 in this spot. A lot of HP, but lost a couple fights in a row, so Prestivant needs to spike harder. No Lucian 2 yet. Feels really bad.
Oh boy. That's a kind of a tough one to hit right there. Has a Sentinel Spatula. It's going to go on to Fiddle. And so here we go. Is this Lucian going to be enough to get the job done? I've seen so many different things with the Lucian as well. Like, should it go in the middle? Should it go in a corner? And I really feel like this is such a tough argument to make because I feel like just both of them have pros and cons to it. The Nunu just walks up and eats the Lucian, though. Just doesn't even care about it. That's a big hit that Prestivant is taking in that spot. My goodness.
Yeah, a little drive-by chomp. The Nunu just casually walks by and eats Prestivant's carry. It's one of those times where you really wish you had a 2-star carry. You need some more HP on that Lucian if you want to avoid getting chomped. Okay, so he does find the Akshan. He's going to get one component here. Doesn't really have anything to do with it because he already has fully completed items. Hits the Lucian 2. Gets the Akshan in now, which is really nice and kind of a secondary carry, although not going to be well itemized. Certainly can hold the Zeeks, and hopefully he finds some other items as we go along. Trying to decide if he wants to move over these Aurelia items. It looks like he's doing the quote-unquote mathematically correct version of 6 Sentinel. What is happening here is by not upgrading his Galio, he's going to wind up having the shield instantly onto this Lucian. Watch the attack speed on this Lucian with the 6 Sentinel buff early, although it does eat the Kennen stun, so we don't get to see much in the way of attacking, Nathan.
Yeah, but, the Lucian is in a pretty decent spot here, although Tristana's going to wipe this out very quickly afterwards. I do like the idea of how that works. It's just that it's just getting chomped away here, not all the time in the world to really, set the positioning. It's a lot of this has been tiny unit transitions that are having to take place, move items around, still keep rolling, trying to find upgrades. When you're having to do all this stuff to your own board, you don't get a chance to scout. And when other players are set up and they're scouting already, they end up getting those advantageous positions on you, as well as the fact that, because they don't have anything to roll for, their board's already probably more powerful than yours is. So I think Prestivant here really has to clamp down here and make sure that you're not falling into the 7th and 6th position here, albeit it feels like 6th might be, a reasonable target at this point. But it just feels like it could be doing a lot better here. Goobums end up falling into 8th place in that spot. So Prestivant there, I'm a little bit worried about how that's going to go, but I feel like this next round is going to be cleaned up for them as we jump over to Solus's side now with the 3-star Yasuo and what I would consider the 3 items that you are picking if you are going 3-star Yasuo. The RFC, the Runans, and the Radiant Hand of Justice for that spot there. That is such a huge improvement to the regular Hand of Justice that sometimes Yasuo is going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Radiant Hand of Justice is definitely one of the better Yasuo items. I also really like the Radiant RFC, as well as the Radiant Gunblade. We talked about that earlier. There's so much power on that Lifeblade. 2 different takes on this composition, right? Solus winds up getting enough Yasuos to stay level 7 and reroll. Rainzer, meanwhile, struggles with it, doesn't find the Yasuos, has to push level 8 and try to play for a top 4. The Yasuo really struggling, though, gets perma-CC'd by this Revenant frontline, and the Yasuo was down. There's not much in the way of damage left, and Prestivant gets a much-needed fight. When you talked about what he needed to do to kind of stabilize his board, he successfully does it and wins in that situation. Feels so good. It can make the difference between placements. Meanwhile, Rainzer, the Yasuo contester, is out in 7th place. Tough spot for Ranger. The thing about contesting Tristanas is when you're rerolling for 2 costs, there's enough in the pool for kind of everybody to have their cake and eat it too. When you're rerolling for 3 costs, not so much, so that Yasuo 1 or Yasuo 2 never able to stabilize Ranger's board in unfortunate 7th place. Actually, that means that Team Goobums takes the fat 7th and 8th. Nathan, that is a tough spot.
I'm never selling my Goobum stock.
Never,
it's
ever,
not
ever.
happening. It's not happening. I'm still hanging on to it.
Yeah,
By golly, I still believe they can win it.
Yeah, meanwhile, from one mathematically correct skirmish or Sentinel board over to another, we have Kurum X. We will see this same thing where this Lucian takes the massive shield from the 6th Sentinel, and more importantly, the attack speed. Look at that attack speed wail away. The Viego is on the Lucian, or on the Yasuo 3. It pops the Nightbringer shield, and then the Lucian comes back down and wails away. Incredible positioning from Kurum. That is a board situation where Solus wins that fight if you generic the positioning probably 9 times out of 10, but Kurum just gets the better of him, CCs the Yasuo, gets the Lucian ulti onto the Yasuo as well. Awesome positioning from Kurum to win that fight over Solus. Solus down to 1 life potentially.
Yeah, plus look at this spot here from Kurum as well. You know, having this Senna in the corner instead of having the Lucian down in the corner, that's, you know, helping protect against the Thresh outcomes as well. You know, that 3rd row is in that spot. It was kind of an interesting angle, but it did feel like perhaps that helped the Lucian to some degree. You know, it's just an interesting spot to have this stuff on the 3rd row. I always feel like I'm very, very hesitant to put any of my ranged units on the 3rd row unless their range is shorter, because it feels like it just makes them more vulnerable. But in this spot, you know, protecting against the Thresh, having the Viego lineup properly, just everything felt right there.
Yeah, also worth noting, by the way, I just realized that was some teammate on teammate crime, Nathan. They're actually Kurum and Solus playing together, so some fun kind of inner team bragging rights. Meanwhile, we hop on board with Jack for the first time in a long time. Last time we were on his board, we saw him grab that Radiant Gunblade, the Life Blade, so powerful, and he has done a really good job. You know, not a board that's very likely to win a lobby in this spot, but a really, really strong iteration, awesome use of the Vel'Koz, and you can see him kind of scouting away, gets onto the correct side for this. Can the Vel'Koz nuke Kurum's entire team?
And indeed, it looks like it can, but I kept trying to spit out the words there. The Vel'Koz was the next target as well. And so this Lucian just holding down the fort, but not quite enough.
The Scion!
But
wow.
The Senna! Whew, God, these fights are so close.
Such a close fight, and that's such a fun interaction between the Vel'Koz and the Lucian, kind of both of the carries wailing away on each other while half the board is still alive. The Lucian is able to reign supreme. The Vel'Koz doesn't get damaged onto it early enough. Meanwhile, basically the entire Lucian ulti hits. Jack wanted to go to level 9, does roll a little bit more. He hits the bear, 2-star, the Volibear. Not a lot else for him to do here, to be honest with you. Everything is upgraded except for this Lux. It's all about positioning now. Vel'Koz positioning so important. He swaps sides. Will it be correct? It is!
But is this enough to get it done? I really feel like so much of this is the Kennen leaning in towards that Volibear means it's going to hit that Vel'Koz afterwards. And you'll notice that the Vel'Koz had the Trap Claw splashed away. The Tristana completely unchecked. That the Abomination jumps off into the corner. The Tristana, though, that is not enough damage to check that Tristana. It's going to wail away at the rest of this board. And I feel like Jack is in major trouble here. This is a big hit that's coming in.
Yeah, a huge hit, some more teammate on teammate action, both still alive into the top 4. Meanwhile, Soju and Precedent take the 4th and 5th place. Could be worse. You actually have 2 teams here, by the way, rounding out our top 4. We have Ramkev and Jack versus Kurum X and Solus. Both teams performed okay in the first lobby. Actually, we had our top team in Ramkev and Jack. We get the black screen swapping over to Solus. Solus with his Yasuo 3, he really has to focus on this Diana position and getting into the right spot. He sees the swap. Was it a fake swap or a real swap? It was a fake swap! Jack fakes him out! Wow. Such good positioning by Jack. This Diana is in no man's land.
Yeah, I do feel like the Yasuo is kind of in no man's land here as well, though. You know, it is right now, it's completely unchecked. So if this Vel'Koz can't melt this line, this Yasuo is going to find, you know, some more damage to be able to crank through here. However, there's just not enough dying on Jack's side, I think, to really get through with this. And so this Yasuo, it's going to be so hard to sustain itself. Gets the shield going. When that Nightbringer proc happens, though, it starts dealing a lot of damage. The Vel'Koz with a ton of damage, though, and gets knocked up by the Daisy. And that's going to give Jack another round to play with here. Solus gets knocked out. That's going to be 4th place. Ramkev takes a loss down to 7 health. but he is laughing it up, and I think rightfully so. Ramkev has had a blessing of a game here, did Hellion exactly as everyone on the planet except for Bryce expected it to happen.
Touche, my friend, touche. Tough for Solus. Winds up getting 2 losses in fights that I think he wins a lot of the time, but just unfortunate on the positioning and not able to take those fight wins. Really, really well played by Jack. Meanwhile, Kurum is win streaking on that mathematically correct Lucian, but now we get a potential interesting dynamic of the team format. Both of these players, Nathan, get to position for Kurum specifically. Meanwhile, Kurum is going to have to position for whichever board he thinks he's more likely to play, depending on who he's played more recently in the Ghost situation, right? So, for example, Ramkev can guarantee the Shroud onto Kurum, does not have to worry about Jack's board at all, but will he scout and move the Shroud? Wow, he just generic moves his own board. He does wind up fighting Jack's Ghost, so not the end of the world for Ramkev. Would love to see if he'll scout and give us a chance to look at the other fight. Okay, here we go. So Kurum did outposition Jack here. Jack's Vel'Koz on the wrong side, but it does melt through the team. It does get some damage onto the Lucian. Lucian's still alive, wailing away into tank front line. Meanwhile, Ramkev goes back and takes a look at his own fight. The Lucian is still alive. The Vel'Koz cast again. So much healing from this life blade, but not enough. We see Jack go out. Now, meanwhile, can Ramkev survive? He does. So Jack is going out in 3rd place, loses to both boards. We are on the final 2. It is Kurum versus Ramkev. This is Hellions versus Lucian and Akshan. Carey, how are you thinking about this fight? What's the setup, Nathan?
So for me, the thing that I'm looking at here is just whether or not the Tristana is going to get checked, and whether or not this Kennen is actually landing the ability to stun through the rest of that board. I think that's such a big position here. And for Ramkev here, finding this Poppy and then unchecking where this Shroud is going means that you have a guaranteed check where you want this Shroud to go. You are going to hit the Vel'Koz with this Shroud at this point. And so you leave the position as it is, and then here you go. Excuse me, not with the Vel'Koz. I completely apologize for what I'm saying.
Oh, he missed the Shroud! He misses the hitbox on the Ivern and no Shroud in this fight. That is such a big deal. The Tristana just jumped to the back and is wailing away. The Lucian is in a safe place, though. Tristana dealing with tanks now on the Lee Sin. Akshan is dashing around this fight. Tristana has not gotten access to a carry yet. It is finally on the Lucian, Nathan, but it jumps over it. Too much damage from Kurin. Wow. I'm gonna say it. This is a Shroud difference. That is a really tough spot. I think that Shroud delays that first Lucian cast and that first Akshan cast long enough, and given that those were the only 2 units left alive, oh, that's a really tough spot for Ramkev. Almost with the back-to-back firsts. I don't hate it personally. I had a lot of Kurum stock going into that game, so I will take it, Nathan, but a tough final fight for Ramkev.
I feel like I caster cursed this one. I'm like, oh, you guarantee the Shroud getting hit.
Yeah.
I totally feel that too. I feel like I've misclicked the Shroud so many times when I get to a spot like that. But, I feel like that lobby really demonstrated a number of things going into it, which is, number one, the importance of finding an end game path when the game has not granted you one. And I feel like the players that we saw go that way also got hit with the, oh, by the way, I rolled really badly when I rolled down situation. And so what happened is it just highlighted the players who were succeeding in hitting the units that were there. But it felt like, aside from the Tristana that took place and the Yasuo that took place, that everyone else kind of had very open directions pretty much the entirety of the time until they found, like, oh, here's the 2-star big unit. By the way, the items all fit this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw, Prestivant and Kurum both going into really similar compositions, with different results, a 1st and a 5th, and sometimes it's which units you hit win. I liked Kurum's itemization slightly better, and Kurum is such a veteran player, so cleanly played at the end of that. Really good understanding, like you said, of not kind of default positioning, oh, I back right corner or back corner my carry, whatever, right? Understood the dynamic of the lobby and was able to get his Lucian and his Akshan on the opposites, or on the same side as Tristana. So when Tristana ulted, it jumped away from the carries, did a bunch of damage onto the tanks, and that plus the no Shroud really winds up making the difference in the fight. So a little error from Ramkev. I did not love his late game positioning or the missed Shroud, obviously, but really, really well played win from Kuramax.
Yeah, it just everything about it just looked totally good. So let's go ahead and take a look at the team card winners for Lobby B as we head into this one. Kurum able to take down the first place. Solus, kind of a tough one that was happening there, but $50 goes into their pockets for this one. Team Pogo on this spot, as we're going to be taking a look at, where this ends up in terms of the, where the standings goes. But first, we're going to be taking a look at the lobby scoreboards. Over on lobby A, HJW with a win. Two pretty strong performances here for HJW, despite the fact that this was one of the lower ladder rated players that was in lobby A.
Yeah, HJW playing well in both lobbies, scoring a bunch of points. I also have to say that I love your pronunciation of Team Pog-O. I think we should call them Team Pogo for the rest of the tournament. That's just S-tier quality casting.
Oh, yeah, it is Pog.
No, it's Pogo from now until the end of time. I love Team Pogo. I'm in.
There we go.
I'm buying all of the Team Pogo stock as we speak.
We got pronunciations for this. How can I miss it? It's like missing that shroud at the end.
No, it's so
we're
good.
taking a look at lobby A over there. Bertosaurus and HJW. HJW with the win on that one. $50 in their pocket as they go into this one. And we're going to be taking a look at lobby A going into game number 3. Before we do that, though, we do want to take a look at the overall standings and where this leads to the teams now. And so already the Neanderthals from yesterday, that 30-point bottom out there, that's getting surpassed by Monkey Dogs in this spot. I mean, that's a 2-game surpass that has taken place there.
Yeah, I mean, Monkey Dogs have 4 top 4s in their 4 games, so really, really impressive performance from them so far. Definitely, I mean, I thought that 54 points from Mega Furrets was a really, really good result, but Monkey Dogs on pace to clobber that with 62 points if they can keep this up, so really insane performance from them so far. Meanwhile, Goobums and the Cuties and 8875 and Brontosaurus all really struggling. We've actually had some fairly big gap between kind of the people who are doing well today and people not doing well today, but hey, we're only 2 lobbies in and we're only on week 1. We have a lot of games left to play here. Anybody still in this thing? Absolutely.
Yeah, we have 2 games just left for today, as well as this is week 1 of 3 that's taking place for this one. So make sure you're going to be tuning in next week for this as well. August 16th and 17th, 2 more days of play that will be taking place for week number 2 as the teams work for that cumulative total in this one. But getting involved in this also is, you've been hearing Bryce and I talk about Ball Street for a long time here. You can head over to fantasytft.com right now and begin to check it out. Again, there's a lot of eggs being given away for the little legends, a lot of predictions and such that's going on there where you can trade your stocks around from the players and try to get your predictions rolling for this one. And if you're kind of curious, like, well, how do I do this? What's been going on? We do have a little bit of tutorial here for you as we're going to be heading into a quick break for this one. It's a very short tutorial. It does a great explanation. So make sure you check it out. And when we come back, we're going to be heading into game number 3.
Fantasy TFT is a free-to-play stock market game where you compete against other TFT esports fans in real time to earn prizes during the live broadcast. Click on the Open tab to see which contests are going on. After joining a contest, you'll start off with shares of each TFT competitor, as well as additional cash to buy competitors with. From there, you'll see a list of TFT competitors and a graph indicating their current prices. Now, this is where your knowledge of TFT comes in. During the matches, pay attention to each player because you can change your mind at any time. The price of each competitor will change based on their performance. Like how someone is playing, buy their shares. Think someone made a mistake, sell them before their stock goes down. Buy low and sell high to maximize your score, and if you can out-trade everyone in the market, you'll walk away with a prize.
It's week 3 of the Giant Slayer series here. We're on day number 2. We're back from the break at this point. Hopefully, the tutorial that you got for Ball Street there was a little bit helpful, that one. I know that I need a little bit of help because I have been getting squashed over on the Fantasy TFT side. I'm here with Bryce Blum, a.k.a. Esportslaw, and so far after 2 games, we have had some pretty giant gaps in terms of performances with the players so far, Bryce.
Yeah, and you know what, Nathan, you are too free because I am so far crushing. I have had a lot going on all of the different markets, so I don't know how I'm doing on the leaderboard because I'm not able to live trade while casting, but I'm feeling pretty good about my spot so far. These lobbies are going exactly the way I want, which is you're doing terribly and I'm doing great.
Yeah, well, my predictions are going exactly as I want too, which is very clear that things are going exactly the opposite of what I say sometimes. Whereas guaranteed to get this shroud gets misplaced. Guaranteed to be going something or other, they go the complete opposite direction of that. I feel like a lot of stuff has been happening pretty crazily here. But in the 2v2 spot here, I really feel like this is one of the more interesting parts of the dynamics here too. And in our previous game, you really spotted it at the end where it was a team that was left in the top 3 versus 1 player, just being able to try to manipulate both sides of that, so that you could isolate a player and try to get them checked in that spot. And that's where again the positioning kind of comes in. Players are always looking at the back left corner, back right corner for their ranged carries, but no one ever talks about the center of the board, which is a pretty reasonable spot for a lot of them.
Yeah, center of the board is, there were times in the past where the center of the board felt a lot worse, right? Like when you had Sejuani in the meta in previous sets and it was just dropping this massive AoE stun in the middle of the board, and you still have that in Volibear, though you can manipulate Volibear positioning a lot more easily than you could manipulate Sejuani positioning. And so there's a safer space now where if you're not into a Volibear specifically, the middle of the board's like relatively safe. Meanwhile, you have Tristana jumping to corners, Thresh hooking corners, right? There's a lot of Vel'Koz kind of casting across corners. So you have a lot of space on the board is not as generically safe as it used to be. It's one of the reasons why I love the design of this set, because it feels like there's so much more positioning nuance. It's not, hey, is the corner the safest spot? Well, the answer is sometimes, right? Like there are definitely compositions that you face against that you want to be in the corner with your carry or the unit you want to stay safe, but not always. And so it's beautiful to watch these players adapt on the fly.
Yeah, and so with my back against the corner in terms of prediction, we're going to be hopping into game number 3 here. We're starting off with Aegon's perspective as we head into this one. Again, this is a team format for those of you who are just joining us. It is a 2v2, v2v2 situation that's taking place here. Players are in teams and they're in the same lobby. So you're seeing 4 effective competitors that are into this one. They're trying to combine their scores and come out on top. We're in week number 1, and we got 2 more weeks of this coming up afterwards. Starting out with the Belt here on Aegon's side. And Belt, I feel like, is my number 2 choice right behind Bo right now, Bryce.
Yeah, I really like Belt as well. Primarily because it's so flexible, right? Every composition wants to use tank items. It also has to be said that Sunfire is probably the best early game slam. There's just something about being able to turn a tank, right? One of the hard things about building an early game board is it's not always easy to find some units that do damage in the early game, right? But if you have a Sunfire, you have a unit that does damage, right? And it's very easy, whether you're playing Abomination or Brawlers or Knights, right? There's so many different versions of frontline in the early game, even skirmishers a lot of the time, right? And so if you have that Sunfire, it's just so powerful. Meanwhile, Aegon gets that new out of box, one of the strongest early game 3 costs. It's a unit that does a lot of work in and of itself. It creates access to the 4 Brawler trait very early. Abomination, obviously, is one of the strongest trees and certainly one of the strongest transitions in the game. So a nice start for Aegon. Potentially can slam a Hand of Justice, hold this Belt, and to be a tank item. A lot of places he can go from here.
Yeah, for Aegon, we saw an 8th place finish in game number 1 and a 2nd place finish in game number 2 as we head into game number 3. Their teammate Spencer had a 1st place finish in their first game and a 3rd place finish in their second game. So a pretty solid score from the 2 of them so far. They're at 26 points coming into the back half of today's competition. That's here, and Nico's kind of coming out of this as well, and I feel like this is a pretty tough spot when you don't even have the option to level and have something in play here unless you want to Nico's your Nunu in this spot. Like this is looking a little tough.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing about early Nico's is it's very game dependent. Sometimes you get that early Nico and it is so impactful, right? If you get the ability to make a 3-cost carry 2-star, even like a Nunu 2-star early can do a lot of work, right? Choosing to slam the Redemption, generically very powerful item, and given that his whole board are tanks, there's a lot of extra value there. Meanwhile, Spencer has the very early Yasuo, the very early Ruin's Hurricane slammed. It could be another Yasuo game. feel like this is deja vu. Last time we were watching Spencer's board, it was early stage 2. He had that early Yasuo, and he was ready to commit. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to deal with Aegon's board. I really do like the decision to slam this redemption. I talked about the Hodge and keep the belt, but under the circumstances with no damage dealing units, Aegon can't win a straight up fight. He needs to win a war of attrition, Nathan, and the redemption is absolutely paying dividends in those types of fights.
Yeah, redemption is an item that I've always found is either very good or very bad. And so when it pays off, it feels like it really pays off. It's just when it's struggling, it feels like it's struggling a lot. And so Aegon here getting some pretty nice units to help out with this. Gets another brawler pickup. You'd rather cash in on the brawler aspect, I think, than the Nightbringer aspect. It's on a Sejuani, so how important is the Nightbringer spot? How important could it possibly be? Get set up for the level 4, level 5 spot that you're going to be going into there. Over on Bertosaurus's board, and this is a 10 gold spot with nothing on the bench, and it looks like very much hoping that you can find a third Draconic unit for what's being in play here for Bertosaurus's spot. This looks tough.
It does. It looks tough, and if the question is what is Bert's average placement from this spot, the answer is, well, probably not as good as Sarah's, because Sarah has the early Draconic already online, plus the Shojin, plus the Rod. But if you are Bert and you are open forwarding and trying to contest into an AP tree, his items are not terrible, right? He's already got the Jeweled Gauntlet, an extra glove, an extra bow, right? The bow can become Titans. It can become a Ginsu's Rage Blade. There's a few different directions he can go. And when you play this open fort style, it is very first or eighth oriented, which means if, for example, Nathan, there was a market somewhere in which you could predict that this player is going first place, and you are not in any way penalized if he goes second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, it doesn't matter, right? Sounds like not a bad play to me, because this is a very first or eighth play style that Bert has going for him.
Yeah, and kind of looking at Bert's score so far, they got second place in their first game. They got 7th place in their second one. Their teammate on the other side of things, HJW, ended up with a first place in the previous game that they had played, and a 4th place in the one prior to that one. So also a 26-point score here that the two of them have come up with, and that feels like just a pretty solid score in general. 26 after 2 games, that's on pace to hit 52 points by the end of it, which is right behind where the Mega Furrets scored in day number 1 with 54 points. And so kind of looking at this board, the Skirmishers, a little bit of a tank, hoping that it gives Brand some time to kill 2 units there. Only gets 1 unit kill in that spot. So Robertosaurus sits a smile at this point. You're heading into Carousel with the best spot you can. And again, I feel like there's so many things that can happen positively for Bertosaurus in that spot.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Bert all smiles. This is the stress-free part of the game. He knows he is losing. There is no way he is winning fights from his spot. So this is not the time that he has to stress out. We hop over on board with Kiyun. Kiyun is really living up to his rat designation going into this. He is the early Tristana. He's got that BT slammed. He's thinking about grabbing this other Tristana. A second cloak on Tristana is not bad because a Rune's Hurricane is quite good onto the Tristana. He also has a really early Nico. If he were winning, I could see him using this Nico here, but under the circumstances, that Nico is going to be his 9th copy of Tristana, almost certainly, maybe a 9th copy of Kennen or something like that. Scouting around and trying to figure out what, taking a look at HJW's board. HJW has that Sunfire, has that very early Fiddlesticks, super strong Abomination online. Kiyun is scouting around. We don't see any other rat players. Are they giving the rats for free, Nathan?
I don't know, but I just can't stop laughing every time Kiyun comes back to his board. It's the side of the left side just shatters out of the wall. He's tabbed back into it like 26 times since the carousel, and it just keeps shattering every time. I can't stop laughing at it. Just wait till they tab back to their board. It's going to shatter back. Boom, there it goes. It happens every single time. But, in terms of the Hellion thing here, to kind of elaborate on that, sometimes you're just not offered the Hellions early, and so you kind of ignore them as they show up piece by piece, which I feel like is one of the reasons why I've been forcing them so much, is because I feel like so often they're just ignored. This is such a powerful team here. And for a Kiyun spot, they have a tier, they have an armor, which that can go on to Kennen very well. You have the Tristana with a Bloodthirster and a Cloak sitting on your bench. That can go out very well. You're finding a second Knight here to go along with the Thresh. A pair of Threshers to go along with this. This feels like a fantastic spot to follow through on this. And again, it's just one of the reasons why I feel like I've been doing this so much. Kiyun they're going up in gold.
Yeah, I mean, Kiyun He doesn't care, Nathan. This isn't about the strength of his board right now. He's trying to figure out which units he prioritizes holding the most. And then other than that, he's already on a 3-loss streak. You might as well 4-loss streak, right? Whatever streak you maintain going into Krugs for some of our newer players, you get the gold reward of that. So whether you're losing or winning, you want to maintain that streak if you're kind of one short of a neutral round, because that means you're going to get a bunch of extra gold from the neutral round. In this situation, if he gets to guarantee a loss by making his board weaker, and he gets to hold on to the units he wants, in this case he wants the Tristana pair and he wants the Thresh pair, then so be it. And you know what, like, Ziggs is not an important unit for this composition anymore, right? We talked about this earlier. It used to be that you would try to re-roll on level 5 for all these 1-cost Hellions. Now, the general consensus is you want to push 6, you want to re-roll primarily for 2 and 3-cost units. If you happen to get a 1-cost unit 3-star, by all means, but it's not a priority for the composition anymore.
Wow.
We're over on Setsuko's board. He has some early tank units. He's got a generically slammed Sunfire. He's doing what I love when players do in this situation, which is scout around first and show us the whole lobby. Some interesting lobby complexion. What's sticking out to you?
I still just am really focused on the cell there from Kiyun. I don't know why I'm so focused on it, really. It's a very common thing for Kiyun is to just focus on establishing a very healthy economy and sacrificing life total as a result of it. And just, they keep doing super well with it. Just, good management of it. Take a look at Setsuko's point here. What I'm noticing here is that the items feel like they're not pointing in a direction specifically, although it's giving you a lot of options for what you want to do here. A pair of bows. We have a sword and a cloak. So you're looking at Bloodthirster as a possibility. You're looking at RFC as a possibility. You're looking at Runons and Shojin as a possibility. There's just so many things that can happen with these items, but it feels like that the tier is really what's standing away from what this wants to be right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Looks like thinking about slamming this RFC. So that's really interesting because there's really only 2 meta holders of the RFC, Nathan, right? We see a lot of Yasuo hold it, obviously, and then we see, actually 3, right? Riven is a very good one, Yasuo is a very good one, Jax is a very good one. And so those are the directions I think that we are immediately looking if we are Setsuko. We do know that Spencer is likely committed to the Yasuo. Not that he has to. Runon's Hurricane is certainly an item that can go into some other places, but given that Spencer has played a lot of Yasuo and showed that Yasuo early, I expect him to have already built a composition around it and kind of be brute forcing in. Draven's another example of a not terrible holder of that item, by the way. So RFC, I think, a little bit more flexible than people give it credit for. We're hopping on board with Emily Wang. Haven't checked out her board in a long time. She's got an early AD board. She's looking to upgrade some, basically anything. Actually, at this point, her whole board is on upgrade. Okay, in early Nocturne too, that is not a bad situation. She does have the Assassin to Pike in. I doubt that she wants to stick in this tree, although certainly if she were to get an Assassin spat, it would become very interesting from here.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a pretty reasonable find, though. We're talking, this is 3-2, and you have a 2-star Pike and a 2-star Nocturne, and the Nocturne's got a Last Whisper, which is a very important item. You're looking at Tier and Belt afterwards. Not ideal, but not like the worst thing in the world. Assassins, a lot of times it's like the Nocturne items matter, and then everything else is like utility stuff that you're trying to land. And so I feel like having a Nocturne this early, really the hard part about this for Emily right now is that it's just the gold count's quite low. So this win streak needs to be maintained. I think if Emily wants to, follow through on a line like this, and frankly, just, sitting at 15 gold, when you roll this much, you kind of expect to get a win streak going. You hit a pretty powerful spike here, and things, can get moving from this spot. And Emily needs this right now. So far, she's had an 8th place and a 7th place finish. And so these next 2 games need to be pretty strong finishes in order to kind of balance out what's happened in those first 2 games. This is just week number 1 of 3 weeks, though. So you have plenty of time to, still even this out. But right now, when I'm looking at a 2-star Nocturne and a 2-star Pike with a Skirmisher frontline, I'm feeling pretty confident that this is going to be powerful.
Yeah, it is definitely a powerful board. I would feel a lot better about it if we had an Aurelia too, to be honest with you. The real issue that she's going to run into is that she has no front line, right? So, I mean, look, this fight against Kiyun is completely free. Kiyun is re-rolling and it has, 2 1-star Threshes on the board. Tristana that basically, doesn't really do damage yet because it just has the Bloodthirster, right? But if she runs into a composition that does do damage, right? If she runs into one of the more powerful players, for example, Spencer, I worry that her front line gets cut through so quickly, and then when these frontline units die, then all of a sudden this very squishy Nocturne without Revenant gets focused, and it gets mowed down. So definitely, I like the position for her. I really like the decision to roll down on 3-2 and stabilize. She had a lot of potential power that she could get to. So I completely agree with the set of decision making. I'm just not sure that I am completely sold on this board yet. We'd have to really see all the different matchups to know whether or not she's strong enough to keep win streaking. But so far, 4 in a row, 90 HP. She's in a great spot. Well played. Good bounce back game from Emily.
Yeah. I think it was an excellent point you made, too, about the matchups there. I feel like Assassin's so very much dependent on a lot of the matchup positions that are taking place. Finds a belt as well to go along with that. So that's looking like potentially a Warmogs that's taking place and using that tier for something else. Looking at Spencer's side. Is that a grief on the Tristanas? Is that the Yasuo method here? Is you just keep taking the Tristanas away so that way the Tristana players don't overcome your 3-star target first?
Yeah, I mean, Spencer's commitment to the cause is just truly a thing of beauty, right? In a meta where there is one composition that is the strongest and where at least one person in every lobby is going for it. If you just buy and hold that unit and make decisions around that, you actually can have a profound impact on the game. And I think a little bit unlucky in that first lobby that we watched where they wound up going 1-2 anyway, 2-3 anyway. But, I really like this heads-up play from Spencer. I'd love to see more players get on board, particularly in team format where you can kind of coordinate. This is really the big test for Emily's board. The Yasuo is starting to shred through, and I just don't... This is exactly what I was thinking, is that if you get a composition that's kind of well-built to do damage, to cut through the front line, then Nocturnes does not get enough time to kind of deal with the power that winds up and just gets completely ganged up on and killed. So Emily will take that loss, not surprising. Spencer's board really strong. Setsuko, the other win streaker. Meanwhile, we're watching Kiyun's Tristana just dance all over the map. These brawlers it's hard to catch that little rat. That thing's jumping all over the place, Nathan. They're really getting in their steps in that fight.
It really is, but I'll tell you what, Nunu sometimes picks that Tristana straight out of midair with that bite. So that's something I'm always looking forward to, is to see if that Nunu can do it. We're hopping over to Sarah Lynn's side, and this is looking... wow. I mean, these rating items, nothing's really jumping out to me at this point. Going with the offense here to try to just capitalize on the amount of damage that can take place in that spot. I don't blame Sarah for this either, because I'm looking at a Rod with a tier on a Galio at the moment, and at some point this Galio, I believe, gets sold off. And so you're looking at Archangel Shojin plus the Radiant Jeweled Gauntlet that's taking place from the damage here, and that is a lot of caster damage that's being stuck onto one unit. I feel like if this turns into something big at some point, we're looking at golden eggs that are being produced at this point. If a Heimer's going to jump out of this, that Heimer, one cast and suddenly the board feels like it's going to be gone.
Yeah, I hope Sarah's stock is on the rise right now, because when you get 5 Draconic online in Stage 3, there is so much potential power, especially if she gets lucky and winds up printing a 5-turn egg. You can get some nutty things out of that. So, Sarah in a really good spot overall. She's already level 7. She's had Draconic online for a while, clearly given her economy. She has 5 Draconic online, so by the time we head into Stage 4, she will have already printed 2 golden eggs and 60 HP, so really not a bad spot for Sarah. And there she is with a Nunu pair and a Brand pair. She's going to be able to roll a little bit here and hard stabilize a board. She could also consider going to a fast 8. A lot of the time with Draconic online this early, you can go 8 on 4-2, and you can have your cake and eat it too. You can play A-Bomb plus... have all 5 Draconics in and really print these eggs during Stage 4 with a pretty powerful board. I would love to see her take that line.
Yeah, if you played at all during set 4-5, it's very reminiscent of the Ornn find to me. Like when you found Ornn heading into the 4-1 stage, it felt like you had time. But look at 3 units show up to complete 2 stars there. A massive window for Sarah in that spot, and honestly, some pretty reasonable item stuff that's being found here as well. Sarah, this has to be looking at a 4-2 level 8 scenario here. So much favorable things just happened in this spot.
Yes, absolutely. I love Sarah's spot here. With those hits, she really doesn't even need to roll, so it's just about getting one more level in to put in the Callista, and all of a sudden her board becomes much stronger. She's going to get to complete an item for sure on the next armory that's going to be available on the next stage. So Sarah is about to massive spike, to say nothing of the perspective power that she has, given that she is in a really cool spot with the 5 Draconic online super early. So I am very interested in Sarah stock right now, Nathan. It's going to be fun to see how this game pans out for her. You know, when you get the Draconic online this early, it feels a little bit like Fortune to me, where if you can afford to print these eggs for a long enough period of time, there is so much you can do to spike your board. And then she's in the AP tree, which can transition to full legendaries, right? You can go for the 4 Invoker version. You can stick with the A-Bomb version. There's just so much she can do from this spot. So very excited to see. Meanwhile, we get to see what the STEMI is, Kiyun being the first person to hit it. It's a bunch of gold and a 4-cost unit, which is really interesting. Kiyun really wanted a bow here, unfortunately not able to get it. I'm trying to figure out what item he wants to get. He does have a Guardian Angel for cannon if he wants to go that path. He could also take a belt, yeah, and go for Morello, so that's a very interesting line. Kiyun 37 HP, so might consider rolling it all the way down here. He's only 2 Tristanas away. Okay, so we're not ready to go all in just yet, Nathan. Kiyun is very willing to live dangerously and live or die by these Hellions. It is a 1st or 8th play style.
It is just very much Kiyun from everything I've ever seen them play. It's just they sacrifice life in order to get more economy, and then try to manipulate that to the best possible position. Kiyun's never afraid to go 8th. It feels like they accept the consequences of these actions, and frankly, I don't blame them here. The Tristana 3, the Kennen 3, those are your directions at this point. You're going to take another hit here. That hit's going to hurt. You don't expect your team to be quite this overpowered, I think, given the situation. But you're 2 Tristanas away. And so right now, taking that hit and going to 28, I feel like now is a position where you have to get something going. And now that 8th Tristana is found, I feel like Kiyun's, they're going to have to make something happen here.
Yeah, 28 HP, 1 life. Okay, there we go. And by the way, priority pick on the next carousel, so very high chance of being able to get that bow that he needs to really cap out. The extra Runin's proc on a Tristana 3 does so much work, so much ability or attack damage being spread all over the place. No other 3-stars and really not that close, so it'll be interesting to see if he decides to keep re-rolling either at this level or on level 7, or if he's purely in pushing levels mode at this point.
Emily with the Radiant QSS that took place there as well, and 6 Nocturnes found. So Emily with a pretty healthy amount of life total with Assassins at this point. Not something that you usually see with Assassins. I feel like Assassins often are kind of taking a big hit there, but you're seeing from Kiyun's side of things, this Tristana is just cranking damage. When you hit the 3-star Tristana, this is the biggest spike that you get with the team. And so the next biggest spike that Kiyun's going to have is on this carousel pick. So everything is lined up for Kiyun to have a complete reversal of what's taking place in this lobby for them so far. A bow, I think, is a massive hit if there's a bow in this one and Kiyun's able to grab it. And that is going to completely change, I think, the dynamic of this lobby.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if someone's scouting, team game. Okay, so Bert doesn't want the bow. Kiyun gets the bow. And this is the difference between mini placements. Wait a second. Whoa. Oh, there's a Teemo. Okay, this is as first or 8th as I have seen in a little while.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to see if he goes for the QSS onto the, he could remove this glove and go QSS, or if he's just going to say, you know what, I'm prepared to just wait for stage 5 and see if I get a bow there, and if not, then I can remove her, because if he can find a bow naturally, then getting a Teemo with a Trap Claw is such a big deal. But if he winds up stuck with this cloak on this Tristana, it's just so much worse than other versions of this composition. So be very curious. Okay, this man, he doesn't care. He is unafraid, Nathan. He slams the Trap Claw. He does have a remover, so it's not like he's going to get stuck with the naked cloak onto his Tristana, but a very 1st or 8th oriented play from Kiyun.
I mean, this is something. I mean, I don't even know. I ain't got the words for this. I feel like this is just such a brave play, I guess. I don't know if brave or ridiculous is the word I'm
about
looking
greedy?
for at this point. Greedy, there we go. It's a very greedy play. But again, it feels like the way I've just described of Kiyun and the way that they play so far. And they are able to make this succeed. And this is one of the reasons why I've always been so interested in the way that Kiyun plays and watching them play, is that this constantly happens, and they constantly have very consistent, strong finishes. Everything that's taking place here. And again, the 3-star Tristana, that's the biggest one. The item is important, but I don't think it's the most important thing right now. Finding this Teemo, getting a Trap Claw to help protect your Tristana, that is a big benefit as well. And now you have a clear direction of where your gold is going. It's going to level 8, and you're getting 6 Hellion online.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. And you know what? I do think that the remover is an underrated item, right? It's a situation where a lot of players don't really like remover. They think it's kind of a useless item, but I think it impacts his play directly there because he could have easily, felt like he was forced because the cloak was already onto the Tristana. But now he says, you know what? I can remove her and put a completed item from a later neutral or carousel, so I'm not stressed about it. Meanwhile, we do see Sarah, who has been living on the edge of those golden eggs for a while, decides that 4-6 is the time to abandon ship, Nathan. She is done printing eggs. She's ready to win some fights. She has a Vel'Koz 2 in, quite strong. Were the eggs enough? Ooh, she eats the Zephyr. By the way, back-to-back awesome Zephyrs from Kyun. He gets the Riven in the previous fight, gets the Vel'Koz in this fight. Such a big deal. Brilliant scouting from Kyun and positioning to go with it.
Yeah, the stun plus the thresh afterwards as well. This poor Vel'Koz has done nothing except become calamari in that spot. Sarah Lynn, I think this is the right spot to do it too. I feel like that the stimulus that you get from falling to 40 health is a very good marker of where it's time to like strengthen your board as much as you can. You've done all you can for economy wise. Your health total is kind of low. It's time to start making it as powerful as you can. And so we have 2 more golden eggs cracking in the spot. There's a Heimer that gets found. A Thieves Gloves gets found as well. It's a pretty big find. And honestly, I feel like this Heimer might have a realistic spot here because the Radiants that are in play right now are pretty darn weak. We're looking at a Varus and a Syndra, and there's no Ivern in play just yet. So you're having the gold that you get from creeps here, but then I feel like this is a big roll and a big choices that you're going to have to make. Is it the Heimer with support, or is it going to be the Vel'Koz with support?
It could be both. You could actually play both carries in this spot. She's got a Shojin for the Heimer. She can definitely take out the Callista. She doesn't need the Galio either. So I really like dual carry from this spot, right? She does not need to make this Varus. I completely disagree with that call. Like, I just don't think Varus matters in this situation. I don't think the redeemed buff is a big enough deal, and the reality is Varus is going away the second she finds a single rel. So I would rather save that gold to be able to keep rolling. There's an Ivern. She rolls past the Ivern. She does not need... So this is interesting. So she makes the Varus, and then she rolls past... Yeah, okay. This is correct. I definitely agree with this transition. I do not think she needs Kalista anymore. I think 4 A-Bomb was good, but is now not good anymore. She makes the blue buff, which is obviously better on Gwen, but not better on Heimerdinger. I really disagree with a lot of this transition, Nathan. I think I'm a little bit unclear about what path she was taking. It just feels like her board did not get strong enough to me under the circumstances.
It just feels like a tough spot to be in too. If this isn't like a context that you're very familiar with, these are very difficult decisions. This is what it felt like for me the first time I was trying to learn all the Heimer stuff too, is that just everything felt like it was viable to some degree, and that every little tiny synergy changes like 3 to 4 units on your board. It just felt like a tough spot to be in, and you're just trying to do anything you can to strengthen it. But by point of recognition, I feel like it's a tough spot, and sometimes you're going to make errors in those kinds of spots. I don't disagree with any of your assessment in that point. I just feel like it was a kind of a tough spot to be in. Hopping over to Spencer's side, looking at this Titans, and where does the Titans go on the Lee here? If you're going to take that one, the Zeke's feels like it's pretty good as well. That can help you. You can turn the Diana kind of into a little bit of an Arabot, where it's trying to make sure that this Yasuo is attacking very quickly, but a ton of gold here for Spencer as the roll starts to begin. But I feel like this is a very common thing I see from Spencer, which is just somehow they roll, they buy units, and they're still at 50 gold.
Well, Spencer got that really early Yasuo 2 online, and that's just such a stabilizing force for the board. He's able to preserve a bunch of HP, and, it has to be said that both the Yasuo games we've watched for Spencer have been relatively high roll. Gotten the Yasuos early, gotten good items early, got the Yasuo 2 early, and it just kind of snowballed them out from there. So when you're not contested in Yasuo, there's a lot of power. This is the weakest Spencer's going to be, by the way, right? He's trading HP to kind of stay above 50 gold. He's facing some stronger boards. By the way, Kyun does slam the Gargoyle onto the Tristana. It's not a build you see every day, a Gargoyle, Last Whisper, Bloodthirster Tristana. But you know what? It's fine. He'll remove that later, hopefully, for a damage item. Meanwhile, we are 3 Yasuos away. We are 4 Lee Sins away, maybe also going for the Diana as well, though I don't think he has the gold or the Dianas, frankly, to be able to do that. Spencer dipping a little bit here. Be interesting to see how far he's willing to go. Still at 50 HP, so I don't think he needs to panic and go all the way down. It's not like he's 1 Yasuo away either. Okay, looks like we were able to stay at 30 gold. Be interesting to see if he decides he wants that rel pair or if he's going to avoid it and stay at the 6 Nightbringer. Some interesting debate in the high elo community, actually, about whether or not 6 Nightbringer is better or whether you'd rather drop 2 of them. Obviously, with the Nightbringer spat, it's better to play 6 Nightbringer, but when you have to play Vladimir in the late game, it feels pretty bad to me. How about you, Nathan?
I'm with 6 Nightbringer all the way. You get more damage, you get a bigger shield, and frankly, I feel like these other 2 units that you're putting in play are not contributing too much. Really, to me, what it is does Yasuo avoid getting CC'd? If the answer is yes, good. Does Yasuo crank a lot of damage? If the answer is yes, good. And in this spot, the Aphelios actually, a major contributor to the win here. 5,000 damage from the Aphelios, which is just carrying a Rage Blade at this point. Like, how often can you expect that from a unit? Because, it feels to me like the first 4 Nightbringers you put in play, the Aphelios is not one of them. So I think in this spot, the 6 Nightbringer really highlighted some situations here. And my gosh, is there a lot happening on this carousel. Holy smokes.
Bert denies Kiyun the Teemo with the Hellion spat. I wonder if it's a team play situation, right? We'd have to look at Bert's board in order to be able to see whether or not there's any possible value he can extract from that. But he might be saying, hey, you know what? I'm going 8th no matter what. I need to help my teammate. I need to help the lobby out and deny Kiyun this rat with the rat spat. So I'd love to take a look at his perspective from someone scouting to be able to see. Meanwhile, I completely agree with your analysis, and especially once you get to that Bloodthirster, Spencer just gets so much value out of the 6 Nightbringer trait at this point. So, okay, a couple more Lee Sins. We're now 2 off of the 2 key units. Still at 50 HP, though. It does not need to panic. Okay, we're 1 off the Yasuo. Okay. Not bad, Spencer. Not bad at all. Spencer stock rising, everybody. If you get a chance to trade and grab some Spencer stock, I would say you are in good shape. Hopping over on Bert's board, we can see definitively that Hellion spat is not adding a ton of value, though he does have a Hellion, little teeny little, whatchamacallit, Viego over there, stealing, sort of, not able to get all the way through, but does immediately recast onto this Aphelios. Aphelios is his, but the rest of his board is dead. The Yasuo will come back and clean up some kind of teammate crime. Bert out in 8th place, tough spot, but did deny Kiyun the Hellion spat, so not all is lost.
Yeah, that's martyr for the lobby right there.
Yeah, seriously.
You straight up denied it. We hop over to Emily's side. That is a 3-star Nocturne that's wearing a Radiant QSS with Infinity Edge and Last Whisper, a 3-star Pike that's sitting in play, and that is 6 Assassin, 3 Revenant. Bryce, the Assassin board really does not get much stronger than this, period.
Yeah, it is a really, really strong iteration of Assassins. I also love the QSS, the Radiant QSS on the Nocturne. I will say that the Assassin Ivern is not exactly scary, right? Assassin Fiddlesticks, very scary. So much extra DPS you can puts ability power damage into the composition as well. But that's okay. I mean, there's just so much value in this Nocturne right now. Able to wail away. Actually does get stuck on this double Bramble composition from Sarah Lynn, but the Revenant buff is enough, and the Nocturne survives Sarah down to a single life. Meanwhile, taking a step back, we have Kiyun streaking with the rats. We have HJW, I believe he is on a Lucian composition streaking at 50 HP. Spencer just got online with the Yasuo 3. We're in for a fun finish, Nathan. Who you got?
I mean, this is a big board that's taking place here. Honestly, with Spencer hitting the Yasuo 3, a lot of my thought is there. But honestly, Emily's board's looking quite strong, and I actually really like this Ivern as the assassin here. And I'm going to explain the reason why, but hopefully I don't just get shut down here and stuffed with the outcome of this.
Oh, I'm standing by to dunk, Nathan. No fear.
So the Ivern here is running as like a blocking unit for the Pike and for the Nocturne in this spot. That Ivern's going to jump back, and it's going to create a Daisy, which is going to alleviate the pressure from your Nocturne. Your Nocturne's not going to be facing as much pressure as a Volley Bear gets found as well for the 4 Revenant, 6 Assassin. A massive increase. The Fiddle finds an upgrade. This board just doesn't get much stronger than this, and the whole point of this Ivern is to create 2 blocking units and then stand up as another blocking unit for this Nocturne or for whatever position that's going to be in. And frankly, I think that that's a fantastic spot for that to be.
Okay, I hear where you're coming from. Here is my counter argument, though I'm not prepared to full dunk you. I think she needs a secondary carry. The only way she's getting that in this spot is the Fiddlesticks. She's going to lock. Please lock. Don't buy it. Don't buy it. Come on, Emily. She did it. Okay, she's going to sell the Ivern. She's going to put the Assassin's Bat and probably this extra Archangel onto a Fiddlesticks, put it on the board, then make the Fiddlesticks, and we wind up with Assassin Fiddlesticks. I hear where you're coming from about this Ivern, but under the circumstances, there's just so much more value from my perspective in having this Assassin Fiddlesticks that I'm really excited to see her make this play.
Wow, you get the Nikos as well to make sure that you get to keep the Ivern.
Yeah.
This is insane.
So now she's gonna. So now she puts the Fiddlesticks on the board, right? Yep, there we go. Now she puts the items on. Now she makes it very, very, very well done from Emily. I absolutely agree with this decision making. I don't think she needed to Nico the Ivern necessarily. She could have rolled for the Ivern first, but hey, that is a micro point of this very, very, very smart decision making. Now she gets to focus on the transition. She's got a couple Zephyrs she has to dodge, so she can try to get that Nocturne opposite a unit with 3 items on that board. Obviously, she just needs to move units around generically to dodge the other Zephyr that's already on the board.
Oh boy.
Very, very well positioned into Aegon. Aegon is positioned for her, but I don't think it's going to be enough. There's just so much power on this Fiddlesticks Assassin, plus the Nocturne 3. I don't see how he's going to be able to do it. You see that Fiddlesticks doing that work in the backline, but the Draven is still alive, wailing away. One of the carries is gone. The Pike is gone. Has the Revenant popped yet? It hasn't. There's still alive. Okay, she's 1 HP and a dream and able to get it done. A very close fight, and I do think that was a difference difference between the Assassin and Fiddlesticks. The Assassin Fiddlesticks was able to clean up so much of the units on the board. Having that dual threat is such a big deal for this composition.
Well, I got dunked on pretty hard there, but so did that Draven at the end
I
of the
tried
day.
to do it in the nice way, Nathan. I disagree with you respectfully.
Well, thank you for that. The thing that's really surprising to me is how impactful the Radiant QSS was. In this spot, the fact that the Nocturne is not vulnerable to CC the entire time, I think is what won Emily that fight.
Yes.
Like, the extra damage might have been able to do it as well, but not getting stunned by anything that was part of that composition was a huge deal. As you keep saying, the other thing that's kind of unfortunate about this is that Emily's Nocturne is always running to the center of the board to attack everything. So this is kind of a tough spot that this Nocturne is getting into here, as Emily just takes such a big shot because of that fight RNG that it just does not work out. And she's going to get knocked out and finish in 4th place there, though. So you're pretty happy with the top 4, I think, in that spot, although it always feels like it should be more powerful when you have a Nocturne 3 with those items.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? A pretty good result overall for the Cuties. Emily and Kyun both in the top 4, so well done. I also have to shout out HJW, one of the less known players in the field, and not a quality enough stream for us to be able to take a look at their perspective, which is a sad thing because they've played really well. They have top 4'd every game so far, a 4th and then a 1st place. 52 HP and streaking with a really cool iteration of a Riven carry board. It's a Riven Revenant, not something you see every day. A lot of fun, and just making use of the fact that by win streaking, you can kind of play the best version of the frontline. I think the generic best frontline in the game right now is that Revenant frontline, so very good adaptation. Meanwhile, we have 2 more traditional boards in the Yasuo board and the reroll Hellions board. Who will reign supreme? We're heading into 6-5.
Well, the issue I have for Spencer's board here is that is a Riven 3 that is holding the Radiant RFC, so it's a lot of range that Riven has, and at the same time, the board is just quite potent on that side. Like, my gosh, look at this Riven. It's just this is a monster. How on earth do you stop this thing?
Oh, maybe the Tristana stops this thing. It's de-aggroed, but it's still attacking the Riven. Is the Riven able to lifesteal enough? It is. It stuns Tristana out of midair. Oh! The Tristana too! It's a double kill!
Wow! Goodness gracious. And this is, so much of that is because of A, the Revenant as the front line, so you're getting those extra tanks that pop up in the middle of the fight, and then B, the Radiant RFC giving you the extra range. It's like the RFC that you had back when you just, everyone always rerolled Z3 because he was just a monster that reached across the entire board like a bishop on a chessboard or something. Like the Radiant RFC feels like it's such a big difference from the regular RFC, and I feel like it's such a huge contributor to that win.
Yeah, I think Radiant RFC is one of the most underrated Radiant items. We've talked about RFC kind of increasing in flexibility. There are a lot of people out there that don't like building RFC on Riven because you essentially make her stun part of her kit useless, right? Like she's not in melee range to stun people, but it just doesn't matter. She's just a DPS monster, and with the extra range from the Radiant RFC, she just has so much uptime. We saw her just shredding through the, Kiyun's just kept throwing bodies at her, right? It was all these rats just jumping out of the portal of hell and getting back in there. It just wasn't enough, right? In the end, the Riven was able to take it home, double kill. Like I said, I'm sad we haven't gotten to watch HW's perspective. Clearly playing well, also clearly high rolling, it has to be said, right? Got the Riven 3 really early, got to level 9 with 50 HP and a bunch of gold to stabilize the board, but, the 4-1-1 speaks for itself. Very, very clean play so far, and my guess is the people who have been betting on taking some action on HJW have done quite well on Ball Street today.
Indeed, and you take a look at the winners for this lobby right now, HJW and Bertosaurus. That $100 is right there. That's how much they've earned so far in today's score. You get $50 per win, and so that's 2 wins they have under their belt coming into game number 3. We got one more game here left to play, and so far that is 2 wins is a big deal. As we take a look at both lobbies now and what happened, you're looking at lobby B, where Soju able to step back into the light here. Soju and Prestivan finishing first and second in lobby B, a major turnaround from what happened in game 2.
Yeah, huge comeback for Team 8875. They keep this up, we might have to rebrand to 1122. Really, really good to see that bounce back. Meanwhile, our dominant force so far, the Monkey Dogs, Jack and Ramkev, finishing 7th and 6th place respectively. So very interesting dynamic over in Lobby B. I feel like, I'm not positive, but I feel like this got a lot tighter in terms of the results. So far, the individual standouts of the day have to be Spencer and HJW, both of whom have top 3'd, I believe, every game so far. So really impressive consistency from them over in Lobby A.
Taking a look at the team card here for 8875. Soju and Preston first and second. They get their first win of the day, $50 in their pocket. And again, a major turnaround from where they were. Preston, I feel like, has been having some pretty solid scores so far. Absolutely. They have an 8-4-8 in terms of their points and their finish. For Soju's side, They increased their score by 250% with that win, moving up to 14 points for Soju, 20 points for Precedent on that side, as we now take a look at the overall standings when you combine it day 1 and day 2, and we still have one more game left to go for the players who are in day 2 at this point. This is a 3-week cumulative total, I believe, that they're after, and then the top 4, they're advancing to that final as we take a look at this score. And so far right now, that it feels like we have a pretty tough contention for the top 4 spots.
Yeah, we really do. We see Aegon.gg tied with Monkey Dogs at 36 points in terms of the teams that are playing today. Everyone else above that played yesterday, so no surprise there. Neanderthals with the team that was last place yesterday already kind of falling down the standings. But you do have a few teams that are all kind of really clumped. I talked about it getting closer, right? We have 36, 36, 34, 32 from the top 4 teams today. Actually, wait, Pokemon Fan Club is yesterday. I take that back. So I must be missing one in there. Regardless, we have some nice condensed points heading in. It's good to see kind of everything even out in the players that were struggling get bounce back performances as we head into Game 4.
Yeah, and for game number 4, this is going to be the final one we have for our day 2 competitors. So still some things that can be turned around here a lot. We're every single time that I watch a TFT tournament, and lately I've been casting TFT tournaments, it feels like so much happens in every single game, and so much dynamic can change because of the point differential that's offered between place number 1 and then place number 8. This is a 9-point difference that can take place. And when you combine this with teams, what that means is you're looking at a 15-point difference that can take place just between 2 teams. It can be a 7th and an 8th and a 1st and a 2nd. 3 points versus 18 points. A massive turnaround can happen in just 2 games, even just 1 game in this scenario.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another layer to the duos format is the swing potential is so high. It makes everything really exciting. Obviously, we're just in week 1 here, right? A couple more weeks to go after this, so a lot more points will be awarded, but this is kind of where people are starting to establish their placement as we head further into this tournament, and we've had some really fun back and forth lobbies so far. It's been great to see.
Yeah, and so far, we've talked about how powerful Tristana is as, a composition, and how powerful the Hellions and Cannoneers can be. But so far, the Hellion Cannoneer has not really been securing lobby wins, is what it feels like, at least from what we've been seeing. It feels like it's doing powerful, establishing a lot of top 4 finishes, but the wins, I feel like, have been kind of spread out all the way across the board so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about Hellions as the strongest composition, but it doesn't mean it's the only composition capable of winning lobbies. Far from it, right? You get a ton of different compositions that are capable of capping out at really, really high power levels. We've seen Yasuo 3, we've seen some Riven 3, we've seen Abomination AP-based boards, right? There's a lot of potential different routes to get there. I mean, heck, I think Ramkev won the first lobby with a Jax 3. So there's a lot of different ways you can win the lobby. The meta is in a really fun and diverse state, so it's a good time to be watching and playing some TFT.
Oh, Jax 3. That Jax 3, I think from this set is my favorite unit that has existed in TFT.
Ooh, that is lofty, Nathan. Why? Give me the pitch. Why Jax 3?
Look, he still wins lobby. Jax 3 wins a lot of lobbies. I don't know if you've ever gone and looked at it, but when you find a Jax 3 star somewhere, it usually has won the lobby if it has any semblance of items whatsoever. And then still, even after all that's said and done, just imagine if he had a real weapon.
I love it. That's great. Hopping on board with Soju, coming off of a lobby win, everyone's streamer. Everyone says my streamer, but at a certain point, if everyone's saying it, I feel like, it's kind of our streamer. Immediately makes the Udyr 2 very interesting, right? Got the sword on it already. A bunch of different paths you can go here. Udyr 2, just kind of a generically powerful tank. Also unlocks Draconic potential, Skirmisher potential. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this unit.
Yeah, I mean, this Udyr's just strong. This is another one of the, before stage 3, this is just a very strong unit that you can establish. It's got shield, and it's got extra damage, and it's a very cheap unit on top of that. Bunch of 1 golds that are sunk into this. And so for Soju right now, not really getting anything to capitalize with the Udyr. No Skirmisher showing up here, no Draconic units showing up, but we still haven't seen the bubble. That's for this final one. We're going to see some gold drop here, and we're going to figure out exactly what it's going to be. If you're in Soju's spot right now, I'm kind of curious what you're just hoping for when your bubbles drop here. I'm looking at this and I'm hoping Draconic drops because I always want Draconic because I'm a weirdo.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If we literally get to pick, I'm down for an egg that drops me a Zyra and an Ashe.
This is a knight, so you do a pair of knights here. Looks like pair of knights level. Yep.
Yeah, I can confidently say these were not the droids that he was looking for.
Yeah.
Awkward spot, right? I mean, no other Draconic unit's been offered, no other Skirmisher unit's been offered. It's going to be very hard for him to find his way into a win streak, but he pre-leveled, and he's not in a spot where he's likely to lose streak because probably someone in the lobby is going to be forcing Hellions or something along those lines. And so I would say this is not a spot where Soju is excited. But hey, you know what? I talk all the time about Mortdog. Sometimes he giveth and sometimes he taketh away. He's done a little taking with our boy Soju so far, but you know what? There's a lot of game left to play and a lot of potential high roll left available for Soju.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing here is that you still have a Thresh in play, so that's going to pull these corner units up, so that way Udyr has another potential target that they can find in a spot like this. Going to shield up and get stuck on the Leona here, and so hopefully they can clear that out if you're in Soju's perspective. Looks like that Ashe arrow stun is a big deal. Another shield coming up here, but this looks like it's a loss from that Ziggs.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be a loss. It's just whether or not how good the loss is. And you know what? Overall, you feel pretty good. He killed a couple of units here. It's not like he's in a great position. So this is about HP preservation and trying to find his way into some other units that can do a better job of holding on. We got on board with Goobums, your favorite. Not having the best day so far, but did have a nice bounce back. Third in the last game, Nathan, and he's got you watching. So is this destined for a first?
Well, I'm looking at the items and I'm quite concerned. This was a 2-item start. It looked like for Goobum's side, if I saw this properly, and then just really nothing offered that's... Yeah, it was a 2-item start, and then just nothing offered that's, really apparently an upgrade. And I know that Goobum's really likes to slam items. So when I have to see Goobums have 3 items early and none of them are combined, I'm very concerned with what the result of the game is going to be at that point. Because I feel like Goobums is quite an aggressive player and just manages their gold, somewhat reasonably, and then just finds these oh, this is the spot I want to be, and just tries to make the most powerful board they can until they find that this is my board final spot. With no items established here, I really feel like this could be a very quickly tough spot to be in. But so far, the Leona Thresh, they're really clearing out a lot of this.
Yeah, Night Sword is, I think, a little bit underrated. It's, we've talked about different board complexions, particularly in the early and the mid-game, and if you get this Leona 2-star plus the Thresh, and you run into someone who doesn't have damage, they're just going to get stuck. And so, Goobums looks like he's played a couple of very weak boards so far in Soju and Renzer, and so able to get a couple of wins, but I think I would describe this as a fraudulent win streak if we're prepared to call two wins a win streak. Okay, that helps. Another upgraded unit is obviously powerful at this stage of the game. I would still say Goobam's in a spot where he is likely to lose if he plays someone with an actually good early game board, and he's likely to destroy people with bad early game boards or people trying to lean into lost streak and kill units, because if you're just trying to kill a unit, the worst thing you can see is like a Leona 2 with Night Buff, right? It's very, very hard to get through that unit.
So we're going to find out here if Goobams can continue the win streak up against Kurum. And Kurum, not the strongest board, but not the weakest one. Olaf 2, early. I mean, I feel like Olaf 2 might actually be the strongest early unit.
Yeah, Olaf 2 early is so good. Plus an early Lee Sin. I mean, watch this. It double casts, AoE damage, attack speed slow, so much value. It looks like Goobam's 2 streak is coming to an end because even if he does more damage to this Olaf is only getting more scary as the round goes on. We see it ramp up its attack speed and do more and more work. Meanwhile, you did see both Jack and Ramkev, the duo partners, both level to 5 in order to maintain their win streak. Thankfully, they did not play each other. You know, the chances that they're able to get to Krugs without playing each other are relatively low, but definitely still possible. And you could see two teammates 100 HP win streaking at Krugs, which would be a trip. Very good spot for them if they're able to get there. If you're Goobams, you definitely need to complete an item. It feels bad, but he's got to take the one cost belt, and it does immediately improve his board because, as we were talking about earlier, a Sunfire makes tanky boards more effective, and he has a very tanky board.
Yeah, I mean, Sunfire, you're not unhappy with it, but, you know, you definitely could benefit from a few more gold. I did notice that Soju got a Yasuo with a bow, and at some point in the top left, I saw a chat, and Soju had said, me Yasuo. So I'm kind of curious about where that one's going. Ramkev, though, wow, Ramkev with a very, very nice looking start here from what it looked like. I mean, those are two very solid items on a Riven with 4 Dawnbringer and a Nidalee in play, plus the Legionnaire that's taking place. This feels like a very scary board to run into.
It is a very scary board. He does lack for frontline, though, so if he runs into someone that's able to, like, instant kill... Okay. I see why we're me Yasuo. If we can somehow find one more of those units, Nathan, then that would combine and make a 2-star unit, and it would also combine the item and make a, long stick thing that increases the attack speed. Very, very effective on that unit, so a lot of potential power for Soju going up against this Riven, which is stacking up, takes the Dawnbringer buff, and with the healing on the Hodge is enough to win. Nice job on the healing roll. I think, very good spot. Ooh, he finds another Riven. You see him sit up in his seat there, Nathan?
I mean, I sat up in my seat. I'm not even playing the game. This is nuts. I love the Riven Nidalee build I think is one of my favorite builds from this because I personally like rerolling, but I also like leveling, and I feel like this is a composition that can really kind of do both. And it also just feels like Riven is very good with pretty much any good damage items. Like you put something to sustain on there, and then you amplify the damage. And Riven just feels nuts in that spot. But they are playing against each other in the teammate spot, so one of them going to be losing the win streak here. But you know what? That means that one of you is guaranteed to keep the win streak. And I think that's okay.
That is a very optimistic outlook on this. This is why we keep you around, Nathan. Very positive spin. I think that both of their boards were probably the 2 strongest boards in the lobby from what we had seen so far. Obviously, cannot guarantee, had not gotten a chance to look at every board in that round, but a little bit of a bummer because Jack and Ramkev both had a very strong chance of winning the next fight and going on the win streak. But hey, you know what? Not a bad spot for Ramkev. Still on this Riven pair, super early, has the 4 Dawnbringer buff online, so, not unhappy with this spot, to say the least. Meanwhile, we take a step back. We have Jack as the only win streaker. Meanwhile, we have Renzer and Precedent very low on HP, 62 and 64.
2 Iverns?
Yeah, not bad. We did see a Diana 2 in middle of stage 3. Maybe we see an Iverns 2 to start stage 3?
Oh my gosh, that is massive.
Yeah, it is massive, and that unit is very strong as generic frontline, even potentially synergy-less at this stage of the game. Obviously, also very easy to tech in Renewer because you have so many cheap Renewers. You can also tech in the Invoker, so definitely a good 4-cost unit to find earlier. Not quite like some of the 4-cost carries that some of them are effective, some of them are less effective. Ramkev, by the way, hit the Riven 2. So Ramkev losing his streak to Jack is a big bummer because he has the potential to streak all of Stage 3. We might have seen someone 100 HP at Wolves, but Saylaw V still in an awesome spot. Meanwhile, Jack leveling to 6 to try to protect his win streak. Kurum with a similar board to Jack, but a Bramble Vest instead of the Sunfire. Slams the Jeweled Gauntlet on Olaf. Not an item you see on Olaf every day.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual. You know, Jeweled Gauntlet, I think it's fairly similar to the way that Infinity is just going to work even on a lot of attack damage units. You're not going to be critting as often, but when you crit, you're dealing about as much damage. So I feel like this is a totally reasonable item to be slamming at this point, especially from Kerm's perspective, where you just want to keep this win streak going. You want to be punishing players as well. So Prestament there, you know, they're sitting at 56 health at this point. Renzer sitting at 64, as you had kind of mentioned on this one. There just feels like there's a big gap that's being built in the lobby right now, where the two players that are on top, three with Ramkev being there as well, they're just punishing the players at the bottom who are not having their comp built out very well. And for Kurum here, Kurum is still rolling despite the fact they're on this win streak and that their board is quite powerful, and this is going to hurt the bottom players even more at this stage. And I'm kind of curious to see if this Aphelios will influence anything. It does not, but the Lucian definitely will. Holy smokes, that is a big find.
I was just getting ready to question Kurum's rolling because I didn't feel like he had that many hits to go for me. Definitely had a few pairs. Okay, I see where he was coming from. And Kurum is the opposite of a greedy player, right? We were watching Q and we were talking about how to describe the play. Kurum is never afraid to roll his gold if he thinks he has a meaningful chance of improving his board at any point in time. He doesn't connect on any of the pairs, but he finds this very early Lucian. Lucian is one of the strongest early forecasts that you can hit. It just does so much damage in the early stages when boards are still a little bit weak. He finds another one, Nathan. We got a Lucian pair. He can now sell this Olaf, put the Jeweled Gauntlet, and maybe even the other sword onto Lucian, because that can become an Infinity Edge. That can become it can become a BT. It can become a Death Blade. It could even become a Giant Slayer we saw earlier. So not bad situation. This is such a good spot. I mean, these two Lucians will do so much DPS. All he needs to do is have some kind of tank, and he's got a Bramble Vest Lee Sin too in the middle of stage 3. I feel like we are going to learn a lot on Kurum's board. This is definitely a low roll situation. We'll be fascinated to see how he plays from here.
Yeah, Goobum's, I think that Goobum's board was looking quite good as well, but when you run into the double Lucian that's taking place here, it gets through the front line, though, at this stage, and so these Lucians not able to power through it, maybe? Not able to power through it, so Kurum, despite the fact finding two Lucians here, is going to take a hit, and is finding like a little bit of a tough sell there for the 30 gold mark at that point. But for Kurum, I really feel like this is get to level 7, complete this Lucian. That feels like the most important part of what's happening right now. And so as we hit this carousel stage, I do feel like that there are plenty of items that Kurum can grab here that really make a big impact, but all of those items look like they were taken. It's the cloak.
Yeah, Cloak for BT is very, very good on Lucian. He's also thinking about a belt for more frontline. I'm fine with that. This sword can become so many different items. Cloak is low priority. He clearly lacks for frontline right now, right? Like, the issue is not going to be his damage. These Lucians will kill a lot of units. Obviously, the Leona 2 is tough to deal with, but generically speaking, it's fine. Meanwhile, we hop over to Jack. Jack at 94 HP. Very, very good shape in the lobby. He has the early Redemption and Sunfire slammed. Obviously wants to move those over to the Abomination units if at all possible, but look, he's got 3 Skirmishers, 3 Sentinels to go with that Abomination. There's no way he's selling an Olaf too.
Yeah, and it's also just kind of a tough spot where, Jack really is not getting to... Oh, Jack's at 7, excuse me. I assumed that Jack was, for whatever reason in my head, wanted to get to 30 gold, but when you're sitting at 7 at 26 gold and you're on top of the lobby, you're not too worried about that point. You're going to have plenty of gold going into it, so forgive any of the notion I had initially on this one. This board is now looking insane. I did not realize this was level 7. Holy smokes.
Yeah, very, very good spot for him to be level 7 on 3-5. He has so much economy. He actually makes 30 gold on level 7, 3-5, so really, really powerful start. He's now looking at his item options, Nathan. I think it's Jeweled Gauntlet. He's immediately hovering it. He has a bunch of tank items already and no damage items. The flip side of that is Radiant Redemption is so powerful on Abomination. He does think about it, but ultimately decides to stick with the Jeweled Gauntlet. He says, you know what? I need damage items. I can't just have a tanky A-bomb. I need to have a carry unit. Jeweled Gauntlet, maybe not generically the most powerful rating item, but in that spot, it's hard to argue with.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it pretty much every single way. Hopping over to Pressman, who's also on 7 as well, with 50 gold. We're going up to 60 gold.
And he's leveling, too. He is for sure going 8 on 4-2, Nathan.
I think this might be 8 on 4-1 because we have a creep round coming up.
Yeah, he will have enough gold. I really like 4-2, and here's why. We're going to be playing Razor's Edge either way. He's low on HP. The difference between going on 4-2 and going on 4-1 is like 30 gold to roll, right? Like, he's going to put some more level in. If he goes on 4-1, he's going to have to spend an extra 4 gold to level because it's off cadence. And then he's going to have to, because he doesn't get the extra round of the 5 interest gold plus the extra interest gold from his loss streak, although now he's 1, so it maybe changes the calculus. I think the winning there might swing it, but you could still talk me into 4-2 and just go full first or 8th. He needs enough gold to make sure he hits Heimerdinger in the spot, right? He doesn't have a bunch of Zyras. He could theoretically carry Teemo as well, but he's so low on HP that I'm really worried that if he goes with like 30, 40 gold to roll and he doesn't hit Heimer, it's just a BG situation.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point that you're making, and only a bow gets found from this spot,
which is pretty great.
And so this is I think a really important 4-1 to watch here from Pestiment's side. Finds a Zyra, and so sells the Zyra to free up the items, and that's going in. And so here we go. Pestiment 20 gold to roll in this spot. Finds Set, which ends up getting sold, so that's -1 gold. Viego gets found as probably a stand-in unit for the moment. I feel like that completing this Lux is a trap of 6 gold personally. However, you do have a lot of powerful stuff in play at the moment, so I don't really fault anyone for building anything in this spot. A second Viego gets found, but again, that just doesn't really feel like the unit. It feels like this is completely a stand-in. And
this is
my gosh.
This is exactly why. He didn't make the Titans, by the way, which he absolutely needs to do under the circumstances. I mean, I guess he could be waiting 1 round just to complete, but I'm very interested in killing this bow if I am him. And this is exactly why I was saying I really want to wait till 4-2. I think that you trade the extra HP to have the extra 30 gold to roll there every single time. It's just, he's too inconsistent. He went there with about 25 gold. I agree, he kind of got trapped into making that Lux as well. And he just really severely reduced the chances of finding a single Heimer. Say nothing of like, sometimes if you get enough gold there, you crazy high roll a Heimer too. So I know I'm a greedy player, but I would have definitely greeted 1 more round under the circumstances if I was him. We hop on board with Solus. Solus playing a very interesting version of the Abomination using Karma as an item holder. I promise you he wants that to become a Heimerdinger as well, but you know what? Karma with those items will do some work, although, definitely not the best item on Karma, because the way in which Karma works is she actually reduces her mana then casts, and so as a result, these Archangels are not doing as much work as you might think, like if you're doing the math in your head in terms of how much AP it's adding, so not the most effective Karma items.
Yeah, it's not the most effective Karma items. I'm kind of curious how 2 of them would stack, especially one of them is the Radiant one, and you kind of get the cast initially, like right off the bat. It feels like maybe the Shojin is a little bit of overkill here, but this definitely is just an item holder at the point being. But still cranking a lot of damage here, and when Karma has enough time, it's a very powerful unit. It just needs enough time, and it's hard for Karma to have that much time. But just right now, with the A-bomb sitting there and just the amount of defense that you have in front of that, it cranks some damage pretty tough. And so I'm kind of curious to see how this ends up working out. I saw Prestivant came across Vel'Koz 2 in the previous round. And kind of looking around the board here, it feels like there's just a lot of powerful stuff going on. It feels like everyone's kind of hitting stride very early in this lobby.
Yeah, totally agree with that. You had some early high rollers that have kind of rounded out their comps nicely. You've got multiple 4-cost carries online. I think Yasuo, Sochu have 6 Yasuos or 7? I couldn't tell from just like quick glances at his board. So Solus desperately trying to get to level 8. Luckily has the HP in order to be able to do it. Meanwhile, he goes up against Jack, who has a very full bench. A lot of 1-stars on Jack's side of the table, so definitely not the strongest board. Solus very happy to be playing Jack. We talked about a lot of people getting really strong. Jack is not one of them yet.
No, it is not. Pressman with a big win in that spot there as well. Jack taking a hit here. Not the biggest hit in the world, but still a pretty big hit. So Jack is suffered a lot of damage in that one as well. Pressman with the win. And kind of looking at this lobby, Ramkev feels like the only one who has been consistently staying where they were. Goopums has moved up from what felt like a pretty tough spot in the early game and is now moving towards the top on that one. We're jumping over to Soju's perspective, and that was not very clear what the items want to be in this spot. at least from my spot. I guess it's Runans.
Yeah, it's best in slot Yasuo. I think that the Radiant Gunblade is just the better version of the Radiant Hand of Justice, and certainly better version of Standard Hand of Justice. We talk a lot about the value of the sustain on Yasuo because it does so much true damage, especially with the Nightbringer buff. So I really like the itemization. We're at 36 HP, so we're a little low, but not the end of the world, assuming he's only has 20 gold, though, so he's a little far off from this Yasuo. Let's see what the stimmy is. It's a tome. Can it be a Nightbringer spat? We keep being in the situation where I just want to see the Nightbringer spat, Nathan. It does not come to fruition. Mortdog is very uninterested in blessing these Yasuo players with Nightbringer spat today.
Hey, Cavalier's not super bad. Volibear or Diana? Looks like it's going to be Volibear, so I'm kind of curious to see if this is ticking upwards or downwards on some of this. It feels like it's okay to cut the Skirmisher. That's 5 Nightbringer that's in play now. There's the Frozen Heart getting established, of course, to the Diana, which jumps to the back line, and there's the Runan. So can this Yasuo get the job done? This is a Vel'Koz 1 on the other side with a Shojin, a Radiant Jewel Gauntlet, and a Giant Slayer. So a lot of damage if you can connect with something that has a lot of health total, but a 1-star Vel'Koz is going to get crushed if it gets connected with. So the Yasuo able to fend off the board here, kind of healing up that little bit of unit there. And if you're watching the units that are at the low life, you see that tick up in health happening. It's exactly what Bryce was talking about. It's just such a powerful thing because it's like it's providing an additional tank resource.
Yeah, and by the way, the Aphelios won with Deathblade, but the 4 Nightbringer trait was able to do 5k damage in the last fight. You see him hovering over that. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. This Nightbringer trait is just so valuable. Soju doesn't have the best frontline in the world. No frontline items, essentially just the Cavalier spat, so definitely not like the strongest version of Yasuo comp, but if he's able to win one more fight and then full send it on 5-1 for the Yasuo 3, he's going to be in a pretty good spot if he's able to upgrade some other units as well. Going up against Solus, this is a very good board to be going against. We've talked about, the wide power gap existing in stage 4 in this lobby, and this is definitely one of the weaker boards, so a good opponent to face. Solus is going to all in on 5-1. Great time to play this board, and a very free win for Soju, which could easily mean the difference between multiple placements. Having an extra life going into stage 5 is a really big deal when you're playing this Yasuo composition.
Yeah. And the Hex Tech here as well, against the Karma as the stand-in, everything that's getting hit by the Karma was just getting healed back from the Yasuo in that spot as well. So a bunch of units extra lived in that spot to hit Solus a little bit harder than usual, jumping over to Solus's side. And you can see this has been a slow tick to 8 that they took in stage 4, and so I feel like this board could dramatically improve in a major fashion.
Oh yeah, a lot of gold to roll. The downside is there's a ton of Vel'Koz out of the pool, so his backup carry is not available to him, generally speaking. The upside is I did not see a single Heimerdinger out of the pool, which is really unusual for this stage of the game. And so Solus is going to have a lot of space here. He's going to have over 50 gold to roll, and we are looking for the golden little wizard thing. I don't even know how to describe it. So immediately Vel'Koz is better. Going to be tough to find Vel'Koz too, but that is, again, just a placeholder. Very much hoping to find and play and carry a Heimerdinger if at all possible. He does have the 4 Spellweaver iteration. He builds Desire, so maybe he is leaning into the Vel'Koz. I see where he's coming from. He does have a Teemo here, which he can play for Invoker and drop the Callista. I think Callista is not very high priority in the situation. Okay, goes for the 2-star unit. By the way, Soju did hit the Yasuo 3, so Soju stock is rising, my friends.
Yeah, this is a lot of big hits taking place here. Renzer with the 3-star Kennen as well, holding a Morello, and the Radiant Frozen Heart. The Radiant Frozen Heart, I feel like, to me, it just feels like one of the most underestimated items in the game at the moment, except for when Kennen decides to stop in the middle of the ultimate in that spot. But so far, Renzer taking another big hit on this one, still looking for that Tristana 3, but that Frozen Heart is a very powerful item, and if that Kennen can get to the back line and live, it's a big deal. Solus getting the Tome now as well, gets a bunch more gold to roll with here, and finds an A-Bomb.
Okay.
Emblem as well. That's a big one.
Yeah, very, very big one. 5 A-Bomb online now for Solus, and I take it back, by the way. He already has the Spellweaver spat onto this Fiddlesticks, so he wants secondary carry the Fiddlesticks, which means he would prefer the Vel'Koz if he can. It's just unfortunate because Vel'Kozes are going to be very hard to come by in this lobby if you are Solus.
But my gosh, this is a powerful board. Spellweaver Fiddle with a Dragon's Claw, 5 A-Bomb, and I know it's a 1-star Vel'Koz, but that is a fully loaded Vel'Koz. That is a ton of damage that unit's dealing.
Yeah, absolutely. And going up against Goobombs, who is also playing the Vel'Koz lottery. Vel'Koz definitely a strong 4-cost carry. I'm not sure it's strong enough to support 4 players in the same lobby, but hey, eventually there will be some Vel'Koz on Vel'Koz action. Some of these players will die, and there will be space for some of the other players to find their Vel'Koz too.
Jack taking some more hits, down to 18. Renzer sitting at 24. A lot of stuff getting found to complete some units here. That's a 3-star Tristana with a Hellion, 6 Hellion, 2 Cannoneer, 2 Knight, 2 Forgotten. And the pair of 3 stars that you are absolutely looking for on the Cannon and the Tristana. Lulu's, hopefully coming up next. Thresh hopefully coming up next. But this is a strong board from Renzer at this point. I just feel like this needs to start connecting because it felt like the games, the matchups. I don't know what's going on here, but it's been feeling like it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly when this full board came online, so it's a little bit hard to say. He's also, struggling into the players who are playing Syndra for exactly the reason we just witnessed. But if it is able to get access to the backline, then this Tristana is going to do a lot of work. The Titans as a third item is also really nice because it adds tankiness to the Tristana, which is a ton of extra value given that at 3-star with the Bloodthirster, it's able to do so much damage. But wow, that last knockup comes in and the Tristana dies. That feels so bad if you're Renzer. Really only not a huge deal. Only loses a few HP. Doesn't meaningfully change in terms of the life's perspective, but just feels bad to lose in that spot. A Hellion Spat is available, by the way. And on a 1 cost, I can't imagine anyone's that interested in denying it, but maybe Jack is going to do it. If he doesn't need one of these items, he does. Wow. This is such a fun dynamic of the team play environment, Nathan. We keep seeing people die on this Hellion grenade for the rest of the lobby.
We were talking about this before the event as well. For me personally, I've always felt like the 6 Hellion has been like a bait for me, where I feel like I die every single time I'm on the 6 Hellion. But for Renzer here, the only other stand-in would be 4 Cannoneers. So that means you need to find a Lucian, and you would need a Senna in play at this point. So that's like almost impossible to find when you're looking at this low gold total, and you want to sacrifice some of the 3-star outlets that you have in this point. And just going to keep rolling is Renzer. So off comes the Rage Blade that's going on the Lulu, of course. And so now it's just, can you win these rounds? I feel like Renzer has major spikes still that are available, but it felt like everyone else, again, kind of hit their stride pretty early, and so they've just been, it feels like they've just been suffering with the fact that everyone is powerful right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Generic swaps against Kurum, and Kurum sees it coming, reads him like a book. Bye-bye, Tristana, and this Lucian is wiping out all of the rats before the Tristana has anything to say about this fight.
The Triss just gets perma-CC'd in this fight. Renzer taking a huge hit, but still alive. The difference between taking 5 damage and taking all but 1 damage there, it's about the same thing at that point as we hop over to Kurum's side. And my gosh, that is a fantastic Zephyr that was landed by Kurum.
Yeah, I love watching a good player diff in action, Nathan. It just makes me very happy. There's just so much you can do in a game of TFT, and we've seen Kurum do it time and time again, winning that incredibly tough lobby in that 1v2 situation where the Monkey Dogs are able to gang up on him. He was able to reign supreme anyway and kind of outposition both of them. We've seen many times that Kurum has found he's dodged the opponent's Zephyrs or Shrouds, he's landed his own. It feels like he's always able to keep this Lucian carry safe. Just such clean play from him, and you see him predicting and then going after Jax, and he hits it again. He hits Prestivance Vel'Koz. This guy is insane.
How it's like Spider-Man at this point. I don't understand what's happening. How do you predict this much stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of get good, and also it has to be said a little bit of luck, right? Because it's not like he knows exactly who he's fighting against. He's definitely thinking about the composition or the opponents that are in his pool, and then also which of those boards he's gonna maybe swing a fight with a Zephyr, where if he lands the most impactful Zephyr, and it's just beautiful positioning. You see him scouting across the lobby. As we head into the very end of stage 5, this is a tight lobby, Nathan. This is the tightest lobby we've done so far. Goobum's the only player eliminated, but we have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 players under 10 HP. You have Soulless at 14. Meanwhile, Soju has hard stabilized that Yasuo board. So you have 2 people with a few lives, win streaking heading into stage 6, and a whole bunch of people with a single life and a dream.
7 players alive going into stage 6. Like it feels like it's so rare that you see this many players still at this point. Like, this is nuts how many players are still alive heading into stage 6. Now, granted, this is going to be chopped down pretty quickly. The point is, it's just rare that you even get to this point in general. So,
Absolutely.
Very generic items here on the Akshan. Renzer's going to find Lulu 3, so that also a pretty significant upgrade to the board that's there. But right now, Kerm, and Soju, the only 2 players on a hot streak at this point. My gosh, does the board look powerful on Soju's side. And so here we go, going up against Ramkev, who has not been able to connect with the Riven 3 at this point. It is 8 Rivens that have been found for Ramkev's side. They need to win this fight.
Yeah, this is just an unlucky situation. Basically no chance of winning this fight if we're being honest about it heading in. This Lucian board is just too strong for Ramkev. We saw Soju from a little bit behind on HP find the Yasuo 3. We've seen a lot of people hit their units that they're looking for. Ramkev has that Riven 2 on 3-1 and commits to the reroll and just never able to get it done. So tough spot for him, but good day overall. Finishes in 5th, so not a big deal for Ramkev. As we see Kurum go to level 9 and look to find a way to upgrade his board. Still has not run into Soju's board. Soju's board is the one that he has to be scared of. So the question is, what units does he want to put in that deal with it? And it's tough. It's tougher to deal with Yasuo than it is to deal with other comps because it does true damage. You can't just put in Ironclad or Mystic units, Nathan, because it doesn't matter.
You need CC. That's how you deal with Yasuo. You got to shut him down. I'm looking at this Zephyr and seeing if that can get the job done ever. But that requires some prediction. And then what's this last unit going to be? Last unit looks like it's going to be Viego. Just Viego, again, kind of a unit that can shut things down at times. And that was just like a very unusual movement at the end for Kurum. Just kind of, I think, predicting that other players may try to attack that corner based on Lucian being there.
He saved the Shroud. He thought about cheesing the Shroud, and he said, you know what? I think I beat this board either way, and even if he doesn't beat this board, he's guaranteeing that when he fights Soju, he's going to get the maximum impact from that Shroud in that fight. Wow. The discipline on Kurum, I'm telling you, he's such an underrated player. He doesn't do anything like tremendously. Like, he's not someone that's standing out for the, positioning creativity of a Sox or the roll speed of a Spencer or the breadth of play of a Ramkev. But Kurum is pound for pound one of the best TFT players in North America because he does everything at an A tier or better level. His thoughtfulness and his approach to the game, he plays a lot of different stuff. His positioning has been so clean. I love the saving of the Shroud, and I really hope he fights Soju here and then gets to use it. Okay, unfortunately, we don't get to see it in action. Maybe he'll save it again. Who knows? By the way, Soju did lose and is down onto 1 life as we head into this fight.
Yeah, it is a great position for this Yasuo, though. It's just chopping down this front line. It's going to have this Abomination in a really bad pinpoint spot, it feels like. However, it does get CC'd by the Daisy plus the Abomination pop-up. But with that Hex Tech, it is just really tough to take this down. However, the A-Bomb is dealing a tremendous amount of damage.
Wow.
What? Where did all the damage come from?
Yeah, where did all the damage come from? Indeed, super clean. And it also has to be said, while I'm out here praising Kurum, I'm forgetting about the team dynamic of this event, Nathan. Solus and Kurum are going to finish 1-2 in this lobby. And we talked about the saving of the Shroud. It was into Solus, and he survived with 2 HP. So if he does Shroud in that spot, basically anything, and Solus fails to kill 1 more unit, Solus is finishing in 4th place, maybe not able to kill Soju. Who knows if Soju is able to ultimately go and defeat Kurum. So in addition to just really good board recognition, unbelievably smart team play from Kurum securing the 1-2 finish for his team.
That is absolutely exactly what happened too. The Kurum had to break the instinct of use this Shroud and realize, well, wait a second, this isn't the person I want to Shroud. It's anyone else. That just makes so much sense. And so here we go. It's the team battle. Who finishes 1st and 2nd? Well, they both finished 1st and 2nd. That's 18 points they're locking up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is all over but the victory lap for these two. The Lucian does survive with 1 HP and is able to get a full cast across onto the Vel'Koz, but it's not enough. Only a couple of tanks remain. Meanwhile, you've got this Zyra plus an Abomination, so no access to the Zyra in the backline means you should be able to kind of keep CCing, and the Spellweaver on this. Oh, the ZZ Rot! I take it back. The ZZ Rot backline access wins the game. I was calling it too early, Nathan. What a W and what a finish for Kurum. As we hop over onto Lobby A, wow, a pretty wide gap here. We do see Kurum, or we see Kiyun on the Rats once again, but can he beat Bertosaurus's Vel'Koz 3? Our last lobby, everybody had Vel'Koz. In this lobby, only Bertosaurus.
And the Vel'Koz 3 gets targeted now by the Trist, which gets thrown by the Syndra, and I feel like this is really the big deal, is that the rest of this board did not get really shredded at all. So it really boils down to whether or not this Trist can shred the Vel'Koz, which it does. But now, does it have enough to be able to shred the rest of this board? A Sunfire did not tick on the Tristana so far. It gets to jump across again, but the Cavalier chasing it down. Is this enough to win? The Fiddle gets the ultimate off, but the Trist jumps away. This is the closest fight ever, but the Redemption is going to hold this down. That Fiddle is going to win this fight. Whew!
Closest fight ever is the call by Nathan. I don't know about that one, but it had me on the edge of my seat for the entire time. What a close fight, and it's nice to see, too, because oftentimes when you get into these situations, you see like a Vel'Koz 3, it's like, okay, this lobby is over, it's just going to steamroll the entire lobby, but in this situation, Kiyun able to get a very, very close fight, and you know what? The fun part about Vel'Koz is this is one of the strongest 3-star 4-cost carries because it does so much damage, but it's still Vel'Koz, which means if you position really well, particularly since Kiyun has not one but 2 Dragon Claws, you can theoretically bait the laser away from kind of the core units on your team and then wind up getting the job done. So Kiyun with this incredibly strong board with basically 3-star everything might be able to get it done. Only time is going to tell. Still 4 people alive. We haven't had a chance really to look at these other boards yet. Aegon with a very clean 4 Ranger board and a super scary Auction 2, plus the Volibear 2 with Radiant Thieves Gloves. Man, these boards are fun.
And this is a 4 Brawler board that's happening with these Rangers as well. You know, like it feels to me like maybe you don't need this this Nightbringer effect on the Aphelios, and instead you just need to have a solid frontline that stays put, because look at the amount of damage that gets dealt if you give these Rangers time to deal the damage.
Yeah, I mean, Aegon basically says, I could not care less about all of your 3-star units. I have a 4-Ranger Ginsu's Runan's Hurricane Infinity Edge Auction 2. Ginsu's does so much work on this unit because it's able to stack up while it's ulting across, and so it ramps up the attack speed with the 4-Ranger buff. It hits the attack speed cap almost instantly, and so now the question is, can Aegon find a way to position his board to get access onto this Vel'Koz and to keep his 2 carries safe? He has the damage to kill this unit, but can he get access to it in time before his whole team is dead? Beautiful positioning. He gets everything exactly where he wants it. This Vel'Koz laser should be going in the wrong direction, and this Volibear should be huge CC.
Yeah, and the Radiant Trap Claw across the whole board as well. You see the Akashan get to that back line spot, but however, that Vel'Koz pretty much wiped that board away. And so this Akashan is not going to be able to live through that Vel'Koz laser. Aegon taking a big hit here. Still living at 1. Bertosaurus.
But Bert is dead!
Third.
Kiyun beat Bertosaurus!
I cannot believe that.
Man. And that, by the way, has the very real potential to swing this fight, because we do not, it's not a matchup I get to see all that often, the kind of Omega capped 4 Ranger board into the Hellion matchup, but the last time we saw this fight, it was a bloodbath. Kiyun had no shot. The Auction wiped his entire board, it felt like almost instantaneously. So are there positioning things that he can think about differently? How does Kiyun create a different result here, Nathan?
It's an excellent question. I'm kind of looking at these Reforges and wondering if that item could change any dependence on anything. Going up to level 9, I think certainly could have an impact here as well. It's going to buy a Teemo, and that moves up to the 5th Hellion, which changes some of your board. Oh, it goes up to 6 Hellion, excuse me. So there, honestly, the Locket could have a pretty major impact in this spot, because that is like artificial frontline that's being placed here, and it feels like that's been the weakness of this Tristana so far, is it gets CC'd and then it gets knocked down. And if you give this instead a shield from a 3-star unit with a Locket, that's a little bit of extra time it gets, and that could be the difference between the unit living and not.
Aegon has 2 Volibear 2s. If his damage can stay alive, then it's going to be almost impossible for the Hellions to win this fight. He needs some kind of aggro onto these Rangers. He is slowly but surely doing, but the Revenant buff, it's going to come back, but can he do enough damage? He cannot. Wow. It's 1 fight win and a GG for Kiyun. That is so big. You know what, Nathan? The Hellions heard you talking about them. They said, you know what, Nathan? You think this can't win lobbies? Here you go. Final lobby of the day. Hellions take it home. And by the way, they took it home over Vel'Koz 3. They took it home over a 2 Volibear 2, Auction 2, Aphelios 2. Insane power cap board. So, Hellions, the Rats, capable of taking home lobbies, not just finishing in the top 3.
And I don't know if you were watching that, but that Triss got knocked down to like a tiny little itty-bitty sliver of life and then recovered to full health. So that Locket Reforged that Kiyun executed at the end there, that was literally the difference. The Tristana, if it did not have that shield, just straight up would have died, and he would have lost that fight. It's insane how much that Reforged difference made.
Man, we had some fun finishes. We got a Reforged difference, enough artificial frontline, great call from you that kind of swings that fight. Meanwhile, on the other board, we didn't really get to talk about it, but the Sentinel buff on the Zizirot, so we see that Zizirot wailing away, able to deal with the Zyra in the back line, and all of a sudden it nets that win. So talk about a fun finish to 2 very fun lobbies and a really, really great day of TFT.
Yeah, this has just been fantastic. Let's go ahead and take a look at the winners for Lobby B right there. It's Kurum, and they locked up their second win of the day, which is going to be $100 that they get to pocket. It's $50 per win that they're taking home. And you notice that points there third in the current placement. We're going to be taking a look at the overall standings in just a moment here. First, we're going to be taking a look at the lobby scoreboards. We did get to see both of them, but we only got a glance at the other lobby there at the end. And taking a look at Lobby A with Kiyun and Aegon finishing in the top 2. Spencer and HJW falling to the 8th and 7th place. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier as well, is the fact that this is a team dynamic, is that having some of these tough finishes, if both players have a tough finish in one of the lobbies, that can dramatically swing the point difference that's going to be taking place here.
Yeah, it absolutely can, and it feels like things got even closer as we head into the final lobby. You had another great bounce back game from Soju and Prestivent, so they finished both in the top 4. You had Soulless and Kermex, who had been kind of a middle-of-the-pack team, but they both wind up with great finishes in that 1-2 in the end, and then they're going to be one of the top point-scoring teams today. So, what started as a runaway from the Monkey Dogs got very close by the end of the day as we take a look at the final score. No one able to pass the 54 points of the Megafurts. No one even got close, actually. The closest we saw 8875 and my favorite named team Pogo with 47 points each. Meanwhile, the Monkey Dogs actually, after an unbelievable 30-point start, finished with just 42 points, so they're barely on the bottom half of the field. Unfortunately for our boy Goobums, not the best start to the tournament, only 28 points, but hey, if there's a tournament format where you're going to bomb early, it is this one. He has plenty of time to come back. 2 more weeks. I still believe in Renzer and Goobums and to make the magic happen.
Yeah, we'd have 2 more weeks. Like you said, this is week number 1 and day number 2 of this week number 1. So still plenty of time for players to come back from this right now. But your goal is to try to get to that top 4 after 3 weeks of play. It's cumulative points that are going to be taking place into that one. And so as we kind of round out the day here, we're going to end up going to a break here to have an interview with the winners from today, and getting some insight into how different the team dynamic is, as well as some of their favorite moments from the day. And we're going to be talking with Bryce about some of his favorite moments here as well. But for now, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have an interview and then go from there. The day has ended now. We've had 4 games take place, and we are now joined in an interview by Soju and Pressevent for this one, who finished at #1 in points in today's lobby. Congratulations, guys. This has been a fantastic day for it. The first thing I wanted to ask you about was, for those of us who do not know, is the explanation of your team title, 8875. Can you explain the meaning of this?
Yeah, I don't know what tournament it was, but I think it was like one of these tournaments where I went in like talking trash, and then yeah, we played 4 games, 8875. But yeah.
Okay, so you went, as with all tournaments, you definitely went into this one talking trash as well. I noticed the trash talk, even like you had some friendly fire talking about how you picked Prestevent just because he's your friend and he's not that good at TFT. But I was just wondering, Soju, like, how did it feel to be carried by your friend Prestevent today?
Okay, it's not a carry, but yeah, no, you got definitely like performed way above expectations. Like I actually think, like, after the first 2 games, after he did really well, I thought they were like flukes. I was like, wow, this guy actually top 4 2 games in a row. And then the 3rd and 4th game, I think they were actually like low-key flukes. Like, I'm not taking it away from him. He did really well, and he's like a good player. But like the top 4 from the 3rd and 4th games were 100% flukes. He was probably in the worst spot imaginable, and he still pulled out a top 4. Not because of like skill though, but it was more so like he just hit out of nowhere. Like, it was a guaranteed 8th, and then it's like the most efficient 2 gold I've seen in my life, I guess. But yeah.
Prestevent, are you agreeing with that? All 4 games flukes? Any of those games all you?
Okay, that last game was kind of a fluke. I was guaranteed going 8th, and then I had 8 gold. Oh no, I had 10 gold. I rolled once, and I got double Vel'Koz in one shot, and I got Vel'Koz too. And then that gave me like. I had 4 failure with triple item Vel'Koz. But that game was a fluke. The ribbon game where we went 1-2, that I don't know if that was I don't think that was a fluke, but that was Michael like hard carrying, because I had 8 HP and he like threw his Lucian like frontline for like the one match that we went against each other, because he was guaranteed winning the lobby. And then because I won that round, we ended up going 1-2, because he was the only person I lost to in the entire lobby. Besides that,
and so how different? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh, besides that, I don't think there were flukes, and he got turbo carried. Yeah.
Talk to me about the difference of playing in a team event versus playing in like just the solo lobbies that you normally do. What is some of the major differences that you noticed in today's games?
So I think in like a team environment, there's a lot more strategy. First, it's a lot more fun. I think a lot of people that do play duos really enjoy it, and like they want to push for like more duo tourneys. So like, thank you guys for like hosting this. But to answer your question, I think that like generally there's categories for comps, like AP and AD comps, and most of the time like AD comps don't really share the same front line, but AP comps always share the same front line. So it's like, if you guys are duoing, you really don't want to be contesting each other's like Ivern's, Fiddlesticks, like even Nunu. Like sometimes you can't even find Nunu too. But Ivern, Fiddlesticks, Volibear, Vel'Koz, Heimer, like you do not want to be contesting those. So it's like your item opener is unique, and then also like you have different spike timings. So yeah, I don't know. Like, does that answer the question? I don't know. It's a lot of fun though. So
yeah, I think it answers the question. So one other interesting dynamic of the team format is you potentially have more power in griefing and holding units, and we saw a couple of lobbies where like a bunch of people were holding Tristanas. It felt like that was happening a lot more in lobby A than it was in lobby B today. Did you notice any like coordinated efforts towards griefing, or do you just think that's not an efficient strategy, generally speaking?
President, do you want to answer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
You get the next question. I can answer this one.
Okay. All of his energy was expended carrying today, so it was tough to pay attention to that question. Yeah.
I honestly think Tristana is like, it's so in our lobbies Tristana wasn't a problem. I think if it won the first game, it would be a problem, but I don't think this lobby had that many strong Tristana players, because people were bot foring with Tristana even when they were not contested. But I think in like lobby A, like I know Kyun is really good at playing Hellions, So like I can see why people would want to.
Hugh, Burt, and Spencer were like the 3 best Hellion players I think in the whole field, maybe, and they were all in the same.
Yeah,
lobby.
like Burt plays a lot of Hellions as well. But like in ours, I think a lot of players don't actually know how to play it, so it wasn't a problem at all. So like we just like focused on other stuff.
Bryce, do you have any more questions?
No, you can go for it.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up all the questions that I had for y'all today. Again, congratulations on your win. Is there any shout-outs y'all have before we let you go?
I never have a shout-out.
How about how free everyone else is? How about thank you, P-God. Thank you, P-God, for the carry today.
Oh, me?
I'm waiting.
No. I just find it funny that everyone calls him P-God now. Because it's like a my friend group. We just call him P-God, but his name's actually Preston. So when I hear you say it, it's actually hella funny.
I love it. You're responsible for TFT lingo at this point, right? Like that you could retire a decade from now and people will still be going with all the Sojuisms. Stimmy ever comes back, it's locked in.
But yeah, I have no shoutouts. I think that's it.
Rest of it?
Yeah, I don't have any either.
All right. Well, thanks y'all for joining us. Again, congratulations on today, and I really look forward to seeing y'all play next week.
Congrats, guys.
Thank you.
26 points for P-God in that one. 21 points for Soju. You always expect more from Soju, though.
Very solid tournament performance. I think it's really fun to meme around with Soju, and obviously he's not performed that well in some of the previous tournaments. The reality is, when you look at the sample size of tournaments, and I'm not saying I think he's like the prohibitive favorite going into tournaments, but I think there's been a meaningful amount of bad luck in Soju's tournament performances so far, and I'm waiting for that tournament where he actually like high rolls a little bit and snowballs and does really well. He's obviously a phenomenal player, and as much fun as joke around with him, he's like one of the best and most consistent players in North America when he's playing at his peak game. So happy for them to take day one. Obviously a lot left to go, but also cool to see Prestovent do so well.
Yeah, I think that was a big highlight. I really want to emphasize what you said as well. I've been playing strategy games my entire life, and I've been casting strategy games now for 8 years. The 2 biggest things you need to look for is number 1, who plays really well, and then number 2, who consistently plays really well. And it's both of those factors combined that really stand out to you. When players just have consistent finishes, for instance, they're at the top of the challenger lobby all the time. That's usually a pretty good sign that they're straight up one of the best in the world at that point. But I agree, a little bit unlucky in some tournament stuff, but there's always space for improvement regardless of who you are. It's virtually impossible to play TFT perfectly. So let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule for week number 2 and what we have in store. Again, this is a 3-week event that's being happening, and so it's cumulative point totals that are going to be making a difference on August 16th and August 17th, next Monday and Tuesday, at the same channel here. That's where we're going to be finding this, and there you're going to be seeing the teams and how they're going to be performing. The lobbies, they're going to be getting shaken up from week to week in this point, and again, 3 weeks of play, cumulative point total, top 4 is the goal for these teams. And so now that wraps up the day for us here, Bryce. I think that the favorite thing that I saw today was Ram Kev just always having a smile and a laugh taking place every single time we looked at their board, because every single time we looked at their board, it felt like it was just extremely powerful on the day. What were some of your favorite moments from the day?
I really enjoyed that we saw a diversity of comps doing well. I loved some of the cool team play moments that we got to see, right? Like they talked about Soju frontlining the Lucian. We obviously talked a lot about like the Kermex and Solus dynamic with the Shroud. There's some really fun stuff that happens in tournament formats. Also, shout out to like the most awkward interview ever. Right? I don't know what just happened, but
that's my bad.
But no, that's not on. It probably is on us. It's my bad too, right? I'm still new at this and figuring this out. We gotta get Soju and Preston back here for another interview. I want to run that one back.
I'm used to getting carried on interviews as well by hosts like Doa or by Frodan, for instance. They're extremely good at the hosting position. I'm still trying to learn a lot of stuff from it. Hopefully, I wasn't too bad of a host today. If y'all,
you were amazing.
Hey, I'll take feedback though. Please tweet at me @that's Admirable. So that is going to wrap it up for us here on this spot. The Ball Street website you want to check out as well. FantasyTFT.com is where to head over to. Again, they have lots of the eggs that are being given out to help you get those little legends. A lot of prediction stuff that that takes place and a lot of trading around some of the player stocks on some of your predictions. It's always important to take a look at what they're offering over there and then sign up for it because it's free. You get to head over to fantasytft.com and sign up for stuff and win some prizes if you get some stuff right. Bryce crushed me today as far as all of those were concerned. All of my stocks were into Goobums, and Goobums did not do so well today. But Bryce, I noticed you did pretty well on some of the stuff, so congratulations on that one. Just solid performances overall that were taking place on that. But that is going to wrap it up for us here today. So from the crew here for Giant Slayer, a big thanks to Riot and to Ball Street again for the partnerships that took place, for Bryce and for myself. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week.